Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ascension number 6. We are headed directly into the upper bracket where we're going to be playing the upper final. This is the Shambler against Hamster. And Mesk, you're joining with me as always. What do you have to say about this series? Because when we left off, we were sort of giving a little bit of initial analysis when it comes to this set. You said that you think Shambler is favored. Do you still hold that opinion after you've had some time to process and think about the set?
Don't ask me complex questions at 9 in the morning.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I would say that Shambler is definitely favored. It's just the experience in general, even if their technical skill level was to be about even. Shambler has been playing this for a while, and he knows Zerg versus Zerg pretty well. He embraces the Tism. He also seems like a Tismistic fellow, so it seems like he's in his natural element. And yeah. Is pretty much stand by everything I said before.
Okay, interesting. I'll only say that Keen looked like he could have easily won 2 of the 3 matches that he played against the Shambler, and I don't think Hamster's going to make the mistakes that Keen made in those sets. But
I think
Hamster
Keen is probably a higher level player, though.
Well, it's true, but I think Hamster's more likely to be as aggro as Keen was. So if he gets into similar situations where he has the advantage, I think Hamster will be able to win. But a lot of it is down to I guess like the mental game, right? Because it is a mirror matchup once again, ZBZ. Hamster has been notoriously saying that he's like, oh, I can't wait to get destroyed or something. Like he says stuff like, please don't hurt me or whatever when he's facing off against Mystery Meat. When he said that right before he beat him in the group stage, or all the way back then. And so I feel like maybe there's certain players he goes up against and he thinks like, oh, I'm probably not going to win. But he 3-0'd neblime. I don't know, man. I just feel like this guy is the ultimate wild card. You just look at his picture on Discord and the thing that he sent me to use in the hype video and the hype transitions. This man is another level. He's another creature. He's a furry creature, in fact.
Yeah. Well, I did definitely think the matchup will be very different than with Keen, because I think Hamster is more comfortable with the project than Keen is.
Yeah.
And their playstyle does seem to be a little different. So that definitely could throw Shambler off. Like, while I think Shambler is favored, I definitely can see a world where it turns into like a 3-1, 3-2.
Yeah.
There is definitely some arrangement there. If Shambler loses completely, however, that would be very surprising to me.
I see. Okay. So you're predicting a series where they split matches. You don't think that either player is necessarily going to be going in, going out winless or going in undefeated, right? Like whoever ends up winning this is probably going to drop a match.
It kind of really depends if Hamster brings his A game, and I think that like the first match will be kind of telling of how the rest of it's going to go. Like I kind of saw that with Keen.
Right.
Is that there was, some very obvious tells about how Shambler was going to continue to win this. And Keen tried to adapt to it, but he really couldn't. Because Shambler had him basically figured out, and he didn't really change enough about what he was doing in mid-game to come out of that. Whereas Hamster has more flexibility, so maybe he can change from, if he drops the first run really badly. But I feel like that once Shambler gets a beat on his playstyle, he's probably just going to continue to win. But, we did see a lot of different things out of him, so we'll see. I think that the difference between Hamster and Keen is that Hamster might be able to get Shambler typing.
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
Because, just think about it. Just think of, like, when we saw in the group stages, his dedication to Scorchwrath dropping.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that if it actually gains traction against Shambler, it's definitely going to piss him off.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind there is Shambler was kind of like, he said, right? Shambler said that he thinks that that's like objectively a bad play. He doesn't think that it's a good thing. And so if he gets it, if it's effective versus him, it'll absolutely get him typed.
That's exactly why I said that. Yeah. Because, just think about it. Shambler against me, I've won maybe like 1/50th of the matches I've played against Shambler. But when it came to those matches that we played in the tournament setting, once I got him unhinged, then I was able to squeeze out a win against him as Terran. And it really just came down to doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
And, then he had to basically be like hyper aggro early on in the last match. And then there was nothing I could do about that. But like there are ways you can set him off. I think he's a lot more resistant to that kind of throwing at this point. But I don't think he's run into a player at a super high level that's really done that kind of stuff to him, other than maybe Mystery Meat. And
right.
They have a history, right?
And yes, and there's a stewing rivalry between them.
Yeah.
Mostly Shambler getting angry, but
it can happen again. It can just happen with somebody else in a different matchup, and I think like Zerg versus Zerg is where that Tism can really get to him. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I was watching a lot of bits and pieces of when he was practicing in Zerg versus Zerg against Mystery Meat.
Right.
And he did drop a bunch of rounds to it early on because he was still figuring out the matchup. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Mystery Meat's mid-game Zerg is really going to be able to compete with him. So if he runs into a mid-game Zerg that can compete with him and they start doing weird, cheeky shit that he doesn't see as valid or viable, and it starts gaining traction, then I think that could throw him off.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, right? Like, this is a talk a little bit for when Mystery Meat takes on Keen in the second series we'll cast today. But one of the things that comes to mind is, I've always seen the Shambler, whenever he gets to a point where he's losing games or things aren't going super well for him or whatever, he's usually the guy who says, it doesn't really count because the next tournament patch is going to be better, or whatever. He said that now 3 or 4, I think maybe it's only 2 or 3 tournaments in a row, but it's a pattern you can go back and look at. He's like, Wraiths are OP, so that's why Ascension 5 didn't count. And ZVZ was stupid because of Nather cores in Ascension 4. That's why that one didn't count. You know what I mean? He always has like a fallback. And I almost feel like maybe Mystery Meat, there was a period of time where he was feeling, evoking a similar kind of emotional level. I don't know if it was really his belief, but he came across like kind of similar to Shambler in that way where, Zerg is overpowered and that's why I'm losing. And, maybe that's true, but it feels like we don't know that for sure yet. A lot of Terrans against Zerg players were playing very safe, very defensive. And when they were aggressive, like the one Sideshow match that Mystery Meat played against the Shambler in their previous set, where the Shambler narrowly ekes out a victory, but it was a TVZ, he goes Fulcrum first, and that's a very committal, like resource-focused build that delays your expansion, does all this other stuff, but didn't really do much to get successive aggression against the Shambler and actually find purchase with that, where he was causing a lot of military units. Like he had hit a little bit too late a couple of times and stuff like that. And that's just part of the matchup that maybe isn't super mapped out specifically in CMBW, but a similar rule set to fighting Zerg in StarCraft 1 and even in StarCraft 2 is that you want to make sure that they spend their larva, a limited resource, especially in CMBW and in StarCraft 1, it's a limited resource. So make them spend it on military, and then they don't have as much eco to back it up, and eventually you sort of sustain the offensive, right? And then that's the kind of thing that we want to see out of Terran players and also Protoss players for that matter, but Terran especially in the early stages of the game. And there's obviously going to be some balance changes going into the next tournament, but as of right now, that seems like it's something we don't see that often. So I'm wondering if you said you think Hamster could get Shambler typing. And I'm making this observation about how Shambler has this history of saying, like, whatever he loses to is just something that should be changed, basically. I wonder if that could also affect sort of the outlook. Whereas Hamster, he's coming in, he hasn't made, to my knowledge, he has made 0 comments about balance ever. He has never once said, that's okay. He
hardly makes any comments about anything.
Yeah, I know. He wants to play. That's it. Like, that's all he's ever said. And I don't know if that's because he's, like, biding his time, brooding some thoughts and coming up with, like, okay, what's going to be my actual sort of feedback. I have asked him, hey, how are you liking the project? Do you have any thoughts on it? And he just said, yeah, it's great. Like, that's it. So he's not at all the typer of the way that the Shambler is. So it's very interesting to me to compare and contrast that because they are two very different people, I think, from a temperament standpoint. Like, I've never seen Hamster get tilted, even though he's sometimes said, like, oh, please don't hurt me or whatever to Mystery Meat. Like, he seems to, like, he I don't know if that's just a mind game or if he's just an interesting sort of individual, but he's got a very different style about him. So I'm really looking forward to this set. And yeah, I mean, we've got 5 replays here. I don't know how many of them are legit. I never really do. But we're starting things off. We can get into the map veto, which, of course, I am starting to send you these in DMs, Mesk, as of the last set that we did. So the Shambler won the coin toss. He always picks 69, and this time it actually was 69 for the random number. So he got his wish. He banned Ex Situ, of course.
Of course.
Of course. And Hamster banned Highwater, which is interesting because it's a drop-heavy map. You'd think he would want to use drops. He likes the drop stuff. Okay, he bans Highwater. That people think that's a drop-heavy map. Well, that's weird. Why wouldn't it be? Anyway, that happens, and then the Shambler bans infinite velocity. So our wide maps that are more like potential for macro, although we haven't seen that many macro games on Ex Situ, admittedly, but that's because it just keeps getting banned. Like for whatever reason, people are just not interested. So yeah, that's interesting. And
Hamster picked over Otherworld,
yes.
But we're on Victory Square.
Well, that's probably because Shambler screwed something up. Let me see here. Yeah, I think that's weird. He said the Victory Square was the right order, so did they just decide to throw away the Otherworld pick? Well,
I don't know.
I'm just going to play them in the order I received them, so it looks like we'll be starting up. Maybe he changed his pick or something and didn't post that in the... They might have said that in where he didn't know which one he wanted. Anyway, we are going to be starting off on Victory Square, despite Hamster picking Otherworld. They were both available maps, so maybe he just changed his pick but didn't post it in there. That's probably what my guess. Either way, though, this means that I have been, told separately that this is the right order of replay. So I'm just going to go ahead and trust that Shambler knows what he's doing, which is not always something you should trust, but it's something that I'm choosing to do now. And yeah, that means we'll be starting things off on a 4-spot map. Now, Victory Square was a map that I thought for sure was going to favor Neblime when in the matchup between Neblime and Hamster ended up beating him on it. I think they exclusively played 4-spawn maps, actually. Yeah, they went. It was Victory Square, Highwater, and then Nitro Valley, and that was the set that they played against each other. And that was a case where I was sure that Neblime was macro would win the day, or at least give him a good chance, but Hamster looked unperturbed. So do we have a prediction here? Do you think that this map goes to Hamster because he's got more immediate experience on it? Because the match that was ZVZ match against Keen that was played on this match by Shambler, this map, it didn't really seem like it favored his style per se, unless they maybe if they get like a horizontal spawn. Do you think it's down to the spawn who gets the advantage here?
I think there's a good possibility for that. If it's horizontal, then Shambler can be a lot more aggro. Whether or not Shambler decides to do the same thing he did against Keen, then maybe he'll be content with a cross spawn. So there's a few things he can do in this. I think Shambler would also be fine doing a turtle game and going up to tier 3 if he really feels like he has to. I think that would be more interesting to see because maybe Hamster has better macro than him. And because I feel like Shambler really tapers off at tier 3. Although I think it's in part just due to lack of practice, at least in my experience with it, and maybe he's improved a lot since then. But Hamster, we haven't really seen a lot of. We've seen that he likes to get to tier 3.
Yes.
But his unit selection in it is kind of very small so far. So we haven't really seen him explore too much besides just going straight to the Alcagelisk, which I think Shambler would know how to deal with. So there's definitely, I think, some tug and pull there. So I don't know. I think that this could go both ways. I think that Shambler's history of bull rushing tier 1 to end game super fast is kind of in history now. We haven't really seen that a lot.
Yeah.
For a while. We've really seen him go into tier 2. So I think either spawns he'll be pretty comfortable with in this map, but it was a map that it took him a while to secure his victory against Keen on, and that was with constant harass that Keen was always on the back foot on and didn't really respond to very well. And it still was a match that really wasn't entirely decided until Keen actually left. So I think that there is definitely a possibility for Hamster to pull out in this one if he can just get a beat on Hamster's or on Shambler's style, I guess. I don't know. This will be an interesting match because I think it'll answer quite a few questions about where the skill disparities exist between these players and where the project knowledge disparities exist if it does.
All right, and that sounds like you're about ready to get us started here with our first match of the day. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the upper final is commencing. We're going to go to Victory Square in the Shambler against Hamster. Zerg versus Zerg coming at you. And of course, the Shambler spawns in the top left. Hamster. Wait, this isn't the right replay. Shambler, what did you do? You pranked me. He sent me the wrong replay. He sent me the Keen set. No wonder we're on the wrong map. What a noob. Don't worry, though. I've got a man who sent me with, instead of saying hi, father, he said greetings, boss. Absolutely baited, dude. It wasn't that Shambler sent me the wrong replays. I just realized he sent me no replays. Dude, it all makes sense now. Absolutely baited. Well, Hamster obviously wins because Shambler goofballed. All right, get in here. We're doing it for real. Actual match.
Okay. Suddenly now we have to, like, turn back the turntable and go back to talking about the map because now we're back on Otherworld.
Now we're back on Otherworld.
I think this is more Shambler favorite of a map. Just because this one is aggro.
Yeah. I agree.
So. Yeah.
Don't worry. Roll the clip again. Roll the clip again. Restart. Shambler. Hamster. Otherworld. ZVZ. Don't fuck it up this time, replay boy. Hamster spawning in the bottom right of Otherworld against the Shambler spawning in the top right. Now, the Shambler is snow and Hamster is orange. Does that give you any analysis points? You prefer one of these colors over the other?
Yes, there is increasing amounts of publication of orange cats being very orange and derpy. So, Hamster is going to do something unpredictable.
All right. He is sending a worker relatively early on, and Shambler said brain maxing, and Hamster said need more. In fact, that almost feels like they're talking about my brain not picking the right replay or something. Or maybe the Shambler not sending the right replay.
There's some commentary there.
Yeah, there's some sort of time-traveling disco ball.
I think Hamster wants to know if he's mining gas.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty big deal here because he's going to be seeing the pool first relatively fast here. It looks like both players are probably going to be angling for that. Indeed, they are. The Quasith pool spawning in, but we don't see any Vespene just yet, and it might be a little bit early to harvest it anyway. Of course, we'll have to see if that is going to be different.
When we talk about Keen versus Shambler, there's obviously a massive disparity, not just in project experience, but also like active experience to what's going on in the rest of the tournament and the other matches.
Yep.
When you talk about Shambler and Hamster, now that could be very different because Hamster may actually be following this. He doesn't really vocalize a lot, but he's showing a more active games and general activity overall. So he could be watching these very closely, and he could have a pretty strong idea. We can even see he's attempting to go for like a gas deny there. Just in case the gas started to switch, he was like blocking the worker there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was just incidental, but it felt like it might have been intentional. Either way, Hamster may have a much stronger bead on what Shambler's general approach and style is over what Keen would have had, even through his several matches. I don't think Keen really quite realized that Shambler had basically made a build that just explicitly countered him.
Right. Well, here's something interesting already, Mesk, because there's no Vespene being harvested, right? But there is a pair of Naths on the way.
Yeah.
So he had harvested it prior. Yeah, and it looks like he's going... Now, the question is, does he recognize... Because he did actually just walk over that. But it doesn't... The worker's not going to actually have enough vision range to see the Naths. So Shambler shouldn't actually have any idea that that's coming. And Hamster is taking his first hatch outside of his base. The Drolath, obviously, the burrow trick that Shambler loves to do is put it right on your choke. So it's a good thing to just generally like attack move over there because your units will automatically see that. And the Naths are coming as the Quasis leave the area, but they weren't waypointed too far away, and there's another pair guarding that. So these are effectively just going to be scouts. I don't know why Shambler aggressively burrowed his Quasis, but, you know, he's showing his tummy, I guess. Yeah, burrow. I don't know what's up with that, but that's all right. Glad we caught that. And yeah, the Naths are really just, you know, maybe adding a little bit of pressure. Now that the Naths are still alive, Shambler has to think about if he's going to leave his base at any point, he's going to need to put down a Spraith, and indeed he is.
Yeah. So I think that if he knew that what Shambler does, he would have been looking for that worker.
Right.
That's basically like every single game that Shambler does that. So.
Well, the Naths are getting pretty low here, at least one of them. Just one more attack from the Quasilisk will kill it, so it does need to be a little bit careful at this point. You don't really want to lose these because you still have a little bit of pressure using them. And yeah, the move out is coming. At this point, you know, there's a decent amount of Quasis. 6 of them are coming across. We only have the 2 here for Hamster, and he doesn't actually have any more coming. All of these eggs are workers.
Yeah, Hamster definitely could stand to take a fair bit of damage from this.
Well, it's down to whether or not he
insta-mutates
this into a Circuit, right? Because now he's sort of like coming back to his general area. It is coming now. So I think the clock is ticking here. And Shambler's actually only moved forward with 4 of his Quasis. He instantaneously loses 1 because he was attack moving onto the Circuit that's mutating. I think that deflates a lot of the early pressure, yeah.
Yeah, he could have chosen to ignore that and go around if he saw it morphing and go for the main. But since he kind of waited there instead, he just lost a bunch of time. Now he's just getting a beat on the attack, and well, Shambler is actually just still hasn't not mined any gas at all. So that kind of tells me he might go for more early pressure in this, or at least he's just going to sit on eco for a very long time.
They're at the same hatch count as soon as this in-base finishes here for Shambler, so the production disparity isn't going to be too significant.
There's a bunch of Quasis coming for Hamster right now. Quasis are kind of hamster-shaped, I guess.
They're kind of, yeah. I guess if you tried to make them quadrupedal, they would need.
They tickle like hamsters. He's gonna have quite a lot of them here. I wonder if we're gonna see something like what Keen went, except he's actually going to attack it. Oh, he finally got the work.
Well, not only that, but he's also dealing with the very, very slow response time from Shambler to deal with those forces. It looks like instead he's just going to allow those units to die, and he's going to start setting up K-Grunts at his ramp. But there is a window of opportunity for Hamster to just walk on past, because there are no military units out right now for Shambler. He's got some Quasis burrowed to the left-hand side, scattered across the map. A Zetracor is going to head on over there from Hamster himself. But yeah, it's all down to whether or not he actually moves up the ramp. Looks like he's doing it.
Here we go.
Yeah, the tickling is commencing.
It all comes down to if he chooses to move past these or kill them. He is just focusing them down. He kills the one that was morphing, ignores the other one by the expansion.
Yeah, this is really bad for Shambler.
Shambler is morphing at the moment. He's got money. He's got larva.
Yeah, he needs to drill onto his in-base or something.
Gonna lose.
Yeah, he needs to do something here in a reaction, but instead he's sort of just massed them all up and is now going to try to evacuate. He's lost a small handful, but really the biggest problem right now is that his production is being camped.
Yep. I think it's quickly getting to be a very bad spot for Shambler. He had a very lackadaisical response to that aggro, and didn't even build, he only built like the 2 circuits, which, I mean, even if they had morph, I think the Quasis could have killed them anyways, because there was just nothing building out of his base. It kind of felt like maybe Shambler was still asleep, kind of like I am.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think Hamster would have woken up for this set as well, but you know, he's also playing on in like hotel conditions as far as I know right now. He's in a hotel room on hotel Wi-Fi. Who knows what's going on? Maybe there's some brain lag happening. But the Quasith pool going down, I think, is going to seal the deal. He just goes ahead and... Maybe that explains the burrow, too. I don't know what's going on with that. He's, like, all messed up there. But maybe he's going to be able to fix that between games. Because this definitely seemed like a different kind of play out of the Shambler. Like, this is not the level of impressive play that we've normally seen out of him. So something has definitely gone wrong.
He's not leaving yet, but you see Hamster's unit control was a little lacking there. Those Zets didn't really move forward that fast. Shambler has been gradually tickling this force down. He doesn't have his Quas pool anymore, but the level of aggression is tapering off quite sharply. There's only a couple here. He can just go and kill them. They're kind of low. Oh, they're going to...
Yeah, they move command. Hey, burrow. A counter burrow. All right, well, Shambler is apparently still in the game, but we look at the worker count and we see that Hamster is significantly ahead. His Zethacor has spotted the back base, which is furiously harvesting resources, just minerals from 17 workers. We're adding a couple of more from the in-base. And, you know, he didn't lose his production, so that's pretty good. But there's a window of opportunity here where Hamster rather can choose to continue punishing or not. He does have Iral Iris coming. He does have a third base. Yep. He's a proper base as opposed to the in-base. So he is absolutely going to be, you know, favored as the game goes on. A very big advantage there, and Shambler can only type.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on, and I think maybe Shambler might have been confused that he was getting tickled, and he's like, how can this happen?
Yes. I thought they were supposed to build 90 of them and then not walk into my base. I thought that's how it was supposed to go. So
definitely a little unusual, but Hamster really wasn't able to kind of clutch it out at the end there. His units didn't really respond quite as well. He allowed himself to get tickled down, and Shambler kind of pulled back out of that. So if Shambler actually wins this, then he can, I'd say he's pretty comfortable for the rest of the series, so long as he doesn't continue to be sleepy early on and Hamster doesn't continue to capitalize that. The early aggression, I definitely think, was very unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem right here, though, is that Shambler is... Like, he might think that he's stabilized okay, but Iral Iris being done, Mutath being about 25% complete, and the amount of economy that Hamster has, the biggest thing that he lacks right now is more production, but he still has even production with Shambler, right? So even with that sort of metric in mind, he's actually soon going to be ahead because he's actually taking his in base. It's a little bit more than halfway done. There's Quasis and Naths out for Shambler, but there's enough defenses and Quasis here for Hamster that I really don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. The Naths are sort of waiting in that internal lower base in the middle of the map. And there's a Spraith in all of the bases. There's Quasis coming out, and now we have Mutas starting.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of Naths come out for Shambler. He's probably going to really wish that those were Calculus, and maybe he really wants to get there since he's actually mining gas. He's not mining gas from his in-base at the moment, so he could be getting a little bit more, but...
Well, the problem is as soon as he scouts the Mutath here, he should know, oh man, I'm really messed. Like, this is a bad situation. The Mutas are hatching. They're going to go and make short work of the Naths, and, you know, what can he realistically do? He's only got the one Spraith. He's got some Quasis, but they do not do super well versus Mutas.
No. I honestly kind of expected him to just leave the instant that the Mutas appear.
Yes.
But no, he's gonna try to wall it up. The problem with this little Kagrit wall here is that for one, it's really out in the open.
Yeah.
They're just gonna kill it, and two, it's a little late.
Yeah, it's not only that, he can just choose to ignore it entirely and fly out into the worker area, but it looks like he's just going to attack the extremities, deal with the Quasis. He doesn't really even need to micro here. He could just attack move, and Shambler would be totally toast.
Yeah, in fact, he's losing some damage potential out of this. This is going to allow two of these to finish, but they're already kind of low from the bounces anyways. I mean, he could have just kept fighting that. The one has like 40 health.
Yeah. Well, no, he's going to remax. It looks like he's waiting to mass up more units. He cleansed the area or forced a withdraw or something of the other Quasis down there. And now the Quasith Bulls is in jeopardy since it was rebuilt in the in-base and it's been completely mopped up. So
he's going to ignore it. He wants the workers.
Yeah, that could also make sense. I feel like he might be thinking that this is StarCraft 2 where the Spore Crawlers just one-shot Mutas, basically. So I don't know why he's running away from one of them with 14 Mutas selected, but that's not really how it works in this game. So you can absolutely overpower that. He's going to link up with his Quasis.
He's at a stage in the game where trading those Mutas for all the workers would even be worth it.
Yeah.
Because Shambler is just not in a state where he wants to be losing them.
He's had to spend all of his
gas in a Nath, so...
Yeah, and Naths do not do well versus Muta Quasi, notoriously. Now, the Mutas have pursued a bunch of Nather cores into the middle of the map, and they are instantly going to get wiped out, basically. GG is going to be called just from that. And, well, Shambler had a little bit more time to maybe warm up, but that was Hamster's game to win the entire time. And really the only thing we can surmise from that is that Hamster doesn't yet have that killer instinct, it seems. He's still developing it. Maybe he was a little bit nervous, like, why didn't my opponent GG out? and thought his opponent could maybe, muster up more of a response. But, yeah, we can see there, indeed, that is not the case. And we go on to Sideshow next, selected by the Shambler.
So, that early game was telling not just of Shambler's sleepiness, but the fact he really didn't, like, by the time he started to respond against the Quasis coming up, he really didn't expect them to come as fast as they did, even though they did idle at the bottom of his ramp for a while. And then they did come up, and it kind of just felt like throughout that entire time, he was like, maybe he's like debating just leaving.
Yeah.
But then he didn't. And then, like, he just wasn't making anything. He had like 150 minerals. Could have at least started making some Quasis or something like that, but he didn't do anything for a long time.
Yes.
And it really slowed down his response. And he might have, he did eventually pull out of it, but he could have pulled out of it likely a lot sooner than he did. He could have drone drilled as soon as the eggs finished, and then, at least prevented his Quas pool from dying, and so on and so forth. So I'm not really sure what to think about that. That did not, like...
Yes.
It felt like it was a little too early for Shambler to get tilted.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, we all know there's something difficult in his personal life that's going on, and that's why he's playing from a hotel right now where he's had to migrate to Florida temporarily to deal with some family stuff. And as a result, he's maybe not in the optimal headspace, we'll say. But he still agreed to do the games. He didn't want to drop out, which totally makes sense. And apparently he made time for it, which of course, we all appreciate. The question is, can he bounce back and maybe do something to Hamster? Was that just the warm-up that he needed? Because we are going to Sideshow, and it's a cold one, Mess. This is an ice map.
Man, this is a map that we had some very interesting high-level games on.
Well, this time around, it will be the Shambler as the yellow Zerg in the top left, again, or the red Zerg, rather, against Hamster, the yellow Zerg in the bottom right.
Well, they're not both yellow, so that's an improvement.
Listen, that is an improvement. I'll take it. Now, the thing about this position is that Shambler is in an identical spawn versus Keen. And if you guys remember, Keen marched over here, thought he killed his opponent, didn't kill any workers in the natural, marched up the ramp, and summarily got destroyed by the reinforcements, since he never really killed any workers at all, in fact. So the economy was basically uninterrupted. Again, I don't think that Hamster's going to be in that kind of position. We saw on Otherworld, Hamster was more than willing to just charge up the ramp with a small spattering of quasis, and it seems like basically that situation that Keen had a decided advantage in the series against Shambler, Hamster gets himself into a similar-ish position and just capitalizes upon it. Maybe not to the degree that we would initially think he would want to, or he should, but he does capitalize upon it. So I'm kind of feeling like this will be the same way if Hamster gets to that position here. And both of our players actually saving a little bit of money here, not going for a pool first, interestingly enough. So it's kind of neat that they're both doing it around the same time. I say that, though, Shambler does end up doing it just a little bit late. And I think maybe we'll actually see the same thing out of Hamster, so never mind.
Yeah.
They're just both a little bit slow on the draw there.
The rare 11 pool.
From both players.
I think they're both debating going expansion first, and then both came to the conclusion, I don't want to be the one who goes expansion first, and my opponent has 18 Nats coming.
Right. Yeah, it's another thing that, you made a good point in that last match is do either of our players end up harvesting Vespene? And over here, it looks like Hamster will have his Vespene harvesters scouted. And just kind of by doing this it's a Kagrant. Well, that's interesting.
It's the Keen build. Hamster is not immediately responding to this. Oh, now it comes.
Yeah. I mean, it should be canceled here. He should keep his worker alive, his worker scout alive, but he's not going to, which is actually a little bit of a shame, He's just going to go ahead and deny a little bit of mining time. I don't know that was actually worth it. He ends up losing 50 minerals. And, going to be honest, he says, is typing already.
The typing is beginning.
Yeah, he meant to cancel it there. He kind of agrees with me because you deny the mining time, but then you keep your worker scout and you get a little bit of your minerals back. It makes a lot of sense. Now, in this case, it is going to be a pair of quasis and a pair of naths. We do have just one pair of quasis out for Shambler. So, honestly, the quasi plus nath combo. Oh no, Shambler's actually going to end up losing his worker over here if Hamster was paying attention. He literally burrowed in his face. So, no. Okay.
No, nah.
Nah, XD.
Nah.
Well, we still, I say nah. How about naths? Because there's still only the two pairs, the single pair of quasi. Yeah. There's actually no defense.
He looked over there, but it was after they flew over.
Yeah.
So he knew he was harvesting gas. Is he just going to try to tickle them to death? I think that might be a little difficult.
Well, the other thing to mention here is that once again, we're seeing Hamster go for the expansion. So here come the nats. They should get at least a worker kill or force a burrow or something. That's what we would want to see out of this. He does force a burrow very temporarily. A little bit of mishappiness here. And that should also force out some additional quasis. It looks like two pairs are on the way. But yeah, I mean, if I'm in Hamster's shoes, I might even try to fight the quasis here since you have more durable units. And they do deal, better DPS in that. But,
well, the worker that unburrowed, and is still not mining.
Oh, boy.
It's almost like a worker kill.
Yeah, that is kind of like a worker kill. It's like a temporary worker kill. He's stunned. That's all.
Yep.
Parazets are over here.
It's like in Warcraft 3 where the dwarf throws a hammer at you.
Yeah.
And now you're stunned until the next match.
Yes, yeah. Well, if it's fully maxed, right, it's like a 5-second stun or something. So.
It's like a 30-second stun. That's about how long it takes for a unit to attack twice in that game.
Yeah. Well, we do indeed have a bunch of workers for both of our players. Not really anything too crazy coming from either side. Vespene being harvested a little bit more with pace for Hamster. Very, very minorly here. It looks like Shambler's going to try to change that up as he fully saturates his geyser. And he did correct that worker.
Yeah.
Both of our players now onto their natural. But yeah, on to 3 hatches for both of our players. So kind of even. It's just Hamster got his extra base up and running a little bit faster. I don't know that it makes a huge difference unless you're harvesting from the gas. And it's not something that he's currently doing.
Zorkus.
Interesting.
For Hamster.
Okay.
So Hamster will do something a little bit different now. Again, there is this worker sitting in his choke that literally had burrowed right in front of him. He had the quasi selected at the time, but he must not have been looking there. He almost tried to snipe that hatch that had just started in Shambler's expansion, but unfortunately the tickles were not enough.
Yeah,
that would have definitely gotten him typing.
Well, not only that, but also we have the Kagrin coming for Hamster in both of his bases. He's going to make a Spraith there just for safety and just get up to a pretty healthy amount of workers, it looks like, as he's next round of units is actually Quasis.
I would have said Hamster is going for like Lakizlisk or something like that, but he's not mining any gas at all.
Yeah.
There is no Lakizlisk or Gore is going to be coming from this, at least not anytime soon.
Is his plan, do you think, to overwhelm his opponent by building Zoryus, which just never die to something like a Quasilisk? Yeah.
It's going to be Quasi Zoryus. That's what I was thinking, is that if he just gets enough Zoryus here, and they spawn a whole bunch.
It is Zoryus,
yeah. That's what it's going to be.
He's got 4 of them on the way. They're 200 minerals a pop, and he had about 800, 900 when he started it all. So some Zethicores to sort of patch things up as well. You could absolutely see like maybe some Vorvs mixed in to make the initial engage possible. Some Nats are going to try to sick onto this Quasi. Tickle. Absolutely bopped. Pair of Nats from Shambler now going to be microing, doing a little bit of dancing. This is actually kind of costing Shambler a little bit of attention because he's got like 5-6 idle workers right now, but going to go ahead and correct that momentarily. And here come the Quasi Zoryus Armada. They are on attack move. They will kill the worker. That is going to show the Zoryus for Shambler, so he's going to be aware that, hey, my opponent has a lot of stuff, and I don't. I've got 650 gas in the bank. I need to absolutely start trying to hold on so that I can get up to tier 2. And honestly, circuits obviously do a decent amount of damage, but I know that this sounds silly to say. I think he needs more than 4 circuits to hold this because the Rillarocors are absolutely going to stack up enough damage. And if they get targeted instead of actual combat units that aren't going to be additionally, sent in, then that is absolutely going to be a big deal. But once again, though, we are seeing the Burrowed Worker pay off because Hamster just chooses to not excise it immediately. So now the 4 circuits are up and running before the attack commences. And we do have a firing squad of Quasis on the high ground for him.
Yeah, I think Shambler should be able to hold this pretty well. There's some Vorvs morphing here, but he is starting to make some military to deal with this. He knows it's a threat, and he has plenty of an idea of what's coming here. So he's got to move his Quasis down there to get damage on them soon, though.
The Vorvs are going to be pretty good at reducing the DPS of the circuits, but I feel like most of the Quasis are kind of like split, attacking some of the units up the top. Finally, some of the circuits end up getting bopped, but yeah. At that point, there were too many Quasis to deal, and Burrow, too many Quasis to deal with all of the Rillarocors, right? Like the Rillarocors themselves just didn't end up, being very convincing. And we'll see what he wants to do now. He still hasn't he didn't have enough money when he had the 900 gas initially to do much of anything when it came to the actual, getting his tier 2. So he's only now put it down, and he's put it down in his natural.
Yeah, Hamster's army is not exactly very high damage. And the choke point really minimalizes what that damage is since a lot of his melee. Yeah. He's probably really hoping just to run into just Quasis and not a giant wall of circuits. But, of course, since there's burrowed stuff all over the place, that wasn't going to be what was waiting for him. And he's still going to... He's still kind of tickling here, but he's definitely on a clock now because the Enoz Iris is coming.
Yeah, there's a pair of there's a single burrowed Quasilisk for Shambler on the other side of the map, and a pair of Naths. I think this one does favor him. I mean, he's actually tickling the ground-only army
There's basically no anti-air.
Yeah, all the Quasis ended up dying earlier on, so a couple of Nats are here to deal with that. And those can turn into Calculisks once the Quaseth pool is able to be mutated, and the tier 2 is nearly done. Meanwhile, Vespene has been harvested, and not much of it has been spent here from Hamster, so he's actually going to be doing the same thing. He is on 3 geysers, so that's important to note because he will have more gas income than the Shambler. That will allow him to catch up in terms of the tech, but it might be a little bit too late since we already have that Kalkir Pond on the way for Shambler. And so far, Hamster's actually shown a proclivity towards building, the Mutat Spire units, getting mass Muta out. That's something we know Calculisks are particularly effective against.
Yeah, I don't know if Hamster is even going to get a chance to get to tier 2. I think that the moment that this finishes, Shambler's going to make a big stack of Calculisks, and he's just going to blast into here long before tier 2 even gets a chance to finish.
Well, he's got enough Vespene for it, so we'll see how fast he is on the trigger to build it. The other thing, too, to mention is that, you got to be a little bit cautious of being, thinking that your timing is going to be instantaneous. He's actually getting a Mutath at the same time, so it looks like he might want to go to, Muta Calc. He does have a stack of Nats, but he's only able to mutate 1 Calc at a time, so there's still a little bit of time here, but, again, Tier 2 is nowhere to be seen just yet. Now at 1200 Vespene, so Hamster...
There's a lot of Calculus in the middle of the map that are morphing right now. That's where most of his money went.
There we go. Yeah, I think this is
more of some literalists too if you really want to, but I don't think it's really necessary at the moment.
Yeah, there's no Lakislalisks here to deal with the vast number of ground units, and at the same time, we are going to see the Calculisks come out. Those will deal with Quasis. So there's 17 Quasis here, so maybe as these like small numbers of Calculisks come out here, they could be picked off, and that is going to be pretty expensive. It's just that there needs to be a larger number of Quasis, and the Zorius are actually being tickled to death by all of Shambler's Quasis. So it's going to be a fast GG call. Hamster not interested in waiting for his tier 2 to finish. Yep. And we are on an even series as a result of that. I think a lot of that is down to the borrowed Droleth once again.
Yep. I'll be back in just a moment.
There we go. Got to get the coffee.
I got to run to little daddy's room.
There it is. Well, that means that we're going to be going to Derelict for the next match. This map selected by Hamster. And it's been a back and forth set. Good to see that Shambler didn't, just collapse immediately. But I still feel like Hamster could have had a great timing there because his opponent wasn't interested in building static defense preemptively. It was only when he saw that his worker was killed by the Zorius, by the Quasis, that he actually started to put those together. It felt to me like Shambler had a much worse chance at clutching that match out and getting to tier 2 to begin with if that worker wasn't there. And maybe you could have said he would have been more proactive in scouting if his worker was dead. But I kind of don't think that's true because I've seen the worker die and him died at something that he doesn't scout after that. So it kind of feels like to me he would have had to do something uncharacteristic to actually scout that up. And I'm not so sure that, Hamster would have been able to do it. So a lot of that is down to the worker. Like at this level of play, apparently that can work. It's just you can reveal borrowed units when you step on them in Cosmonic Brood War. So to me, I just think about that and I think, absolutely could have gone Hamster's way. He could be sitting pretty at a 2-0, but he will drop his first match in the playoffs round here. Obviously, he ended up 3-0ing Biddy B and then 3-0ing Neblime to get this far to the upper final, undefeated. But he will concede a playoffs match to the Shambler in ZVZ. And now going on to another 2-spawn map in Derelict. Again, I don't really know what Hamster's background is when it comes to Brood War play. I predict, anyway, that he mostly comes from StarCraft 2, and that's just based on the fact that he's mentioned that he used to play StarCraft 2, or when he was playing StarCraft 2, people would tease him about his bank. Sometimes he'd have a lot of money or whatever, wouldn't be on top of his spending necessarily. But I'm not sure if he's played much Brood War. So the only reason I say that is because picking 2-spawn maps, the 2-spawn map idea in ZVZ is actually better most of the time, because in StarCraft 1, 2-spawn maps just have a reduction in number of places you can be, number of things that can happen as a result, and a very volatile matchup. When you add more uncertainty to the mix, like where your opponent spawned, it just gets more and more volatile, basically. So a lot more things can happen. So I wonder if maybe he just knows that intuitively and says, I want to know where my opponent is so that I can plan for that. I don't want to have to scout for it. So maybe that's something that Hamster's thinking as he picks Derelict to get into this third match of our set.
3.
And that's 3.
3.
I was just recapping, Mesk, that I think a lot of, just like I said it before you left, the worker really showed everything there for Shambler, and hopefully Hamster can error correct that, because if it hadn't been for that worker, I don't think Shambler would have built any static defense, and he might have just been run over, It's an interesting idea to go Zorius. It just didn't work because he, telegraphed it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't really do damage, so it's there mostly to try to break the Quasis, but since he got throttled into a very, very tight sphincter and got squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, all of his damage with that was either spinning around or it was split. Yeah. So he just wasn't able to really accomplish too much at that point. And now that Shambler knows that he's doing early aggression stuff, he's kind of adjusted his timings and everything like that to accommodate. So I feel like that Hamster really needs to realize, wait a second, he's literally just burrowing stuff everywhere, right in front of him, constantly, right in the middle of doing stuff. He likes to burrow things. So if he wants to keep doing that, he's going to have to do something about those scouts, or it's just going to get telegraphed every time. And especially on larger maps, Shambler will be adequately prepared to generally deal with it.
Yep.
And he's obviously shaped up since the first match and, got back into his game mind and is now playing more appropriately. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah, and going into a 2-spawn map for
gas harvesting early on too, right?
Right, yeah.
Getting tier 2 and having Calculus in his base and killing his army before he even gets a chance to even really do too much about it. That's kind of similar to the first game, except he didn't lose a chunk of mining time and units and buildings to end up in that spot. So it was kind of almost like he didn't really expect that to happen, even though Shambler was being very, very defensive for most of the game and had been harvesting gas all that time. So it's definitely volatile, but it's in part that I think it's just like the play style differences are just kind of like the gap is closing a little bit now that Shambler is on his game. So this is kind of like where we were at with the Keen series. Is that Shambler was like, okay, I know what you're going to do, and Keen tried to do some early aggression, but it didn't really work out. And now it's Hamster.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
It's Hamster's time to try to adapt to basically being countered at this point.
Well, we're going on a Derelict for our third match, and on this match, this 2-spawn map, I predict something similar will happen where Hamster will go for early aggression and Shambler will be on the back foot. It's Shambler in the top right as the Beaster Brown Zerg against Hamster as the Snow Zerg. And the other thing, too, that I'm thinking about is maybe that last game, obviously Shambler works up to a Kagrant opener on his opponent and doesn't cancel it and all this other stuff. Types, maybe Hamster's just not used to the typing. Who types? I don't type. And so maybe that put him off. I don't know. But I do think that we had this conversation a little bit before this set, but in general, that when you're fighting Zerg, you want to make them spend their stuff on military.
Yeah.
Particularly, you want to make them spend military. You want to make them spend Vespene on military, because if they can get away with spending only minerals on military, and you don't crush them for it with a superior tech army, then at that point they can get up to tier 2, and in a mirror matchup especially, that can be a pretty bad thing. You spend the gas on, Nathracores and then a Zorkiz, and your opponent doesn't spend hardly any gas at all. That can absolutely make the difference here. Well, we'll have to see if we even get that far, because it looks like Shambler is going for an earlier pool once again. It's like one worker faster in some ways than Hamster, but it might not really be that significant here as far as the difference goes. Neither of our players harvesting Vespene just yet. So this might be a little bit more of a bog standard, sort of like one pair Quasi into Expo opener or something like that, depending on how things go. Just scoping out. Hamster seeing things. Maybe I can try the burrow trick too.
I was hoping he'd run up, attack that worker, and get it chasing him across the map, and Shambler wouldn't notice until like 20 seconds later and start typing.
Yeah, I casted a match between, I think it was Hapsaya and Veek recently, and a scribe was idling from Veek, and Hapsaya had gone Simulacrum first. And I was talking about how you can walk up in melee range and the worker will automatically attack, and as long as you just dance and don't attack, the enemy doesn't get a notification of that. Therefore, you can actually get a free sim off of the idle worker. Like, you got to be careful if you're going up against sim first. That could be a real strat. So it's kind of interesting. Hamster is going to start harvesting Vespene and take his natural to route in the same time. Shambler has gone for a macro hatch in his base, so it looks like we are once again going for a relatively slow ramp up to the early game timing. A pair of Quasis for either player is all that's on the way.
Yeah, no super early naths for Hamster yet. You might see him morph them after this Quasi, though. No.
Yeah, he's got the 50 gas in the bank, and he's decided to not harvest anything. Now, will he actually go proactively hunting for this worker? That's the question, because it is once again burrowed in the choke.
Yep. His worker will not spot it.
He is on an attack move, so I think the Quasis will actually see it, and there we go. He is going to learn and adapt, and that means that Shambler is in the dark. He's got nothing on his opponent's side. Admittedly, Hamster doesn't have anything on his side either. And I postulated while you were away, Mask, that if Shambler lost the worker, would he actually go and scout? I don't know if that's true. I've seen him lose the early worker scout and then die to something that he didn't scout afterwards, even despite not having any actual presence on the other side of the map. But this time around, he is sending a pair of Quasis out, and it looks like they might intercept this pair of Naths.
Yeah, it did eventually make the Naths. The Naths are on move, and the Quasis are on attack, so Tickling has engaged.
Oh, there's only a pair of Quasis back at home. Now, in theory, they can still beat this, especially with a little bit of micro.
He's got an egg halfway finish for more Quasis, so he should be quite fine.
Yeah, taking his natural, obviously, once again, a little bit slower than Hamster does. But Hamster not harvesting Vespene. He does have the perfect amount of, fully efficient saturation. And there's another scout, a burrowed Quasilisk here for Shambler. Just going to go ahead and put it back in there. The Hatchross being tickled now. Not sure that he's going to respond to that at all.
I think he might. No, he's going. He's looking for them, and he won't see them. So you have to think they've got to be over here. My Naths were attacked by them. Where did they go? Well, they're all over the place. He found one of them.
Yeah, that's going to be at least a victory in that there's one less unit that Shambler has on the field. But yeah, I'm expecting that at this point Shambler will get away scot-free with yet another burrowed scout. Some workers flying across the map right now, waypointed. We'll see how long Hamster waits until he sees that.
Not sure.
Oh, no, they're going for the gas in the middle of the map. It's not a mistake. He's going to go and grab the treasury there and try to use the fact that he got a little bit of map control off. Now, that's a kind of a novel idea. You harvest from the treasury, or harvest and return to the treasury from the gas. That's kind of neat. Maybe we'll see somebody use that to get a good advantage here. Shambler has more gas in the bank, but obviously...
I think Shambler might have seen those units on the minimap and thought they were quasis. His camera didn't go over there.
Yeah.
So he's mustered a defense here, but there are no quasis coming there. If he looked that time, he would have seen, oh, there's workers coming now.
Yeah, that might make him think there's an early third base or something, but we know that that's not the case. He's just taking the gas. This is actually going to allow him to surpass Shambler's Vespine income quite handily, adding a Hydrith den to boot.
Yeah, he is just rushing to tier 2, I think. Or maybe, I don't know, with the Hydrith den, he might be going some military, but he's not mining from that ridge in his main, though, so... Now, Shambler replaced his worker in that location, and he's got 2 Naths going down south of this, and I don't think they'll spot anything over there.
No.
Not even any of the quasis that are just carrying there.
So that's kind of interesting. He's harvesting from the middle of the map right underneath Shambler's nostrils. And indeed,
Shambler definitely saw that worker coming there. He knows now, absolutely.
Well, he should know. He should know something weird is happening, and maybe he's sending units and pathing stuff over to the 9 o'clock position. So, Hamster's Nathricor gets tickled by a Quasilisk in the middle of the map. Some more Quasis are on their way. What can you really do in this situation? It looks like Hamster's just going to go ahead and start attacking.
Hamster's in a precarious situation. Oh, he's making skips.
Oh, that's what the gas is for, huh?
Yeah. Well, he's going to have enough left over that he can just go for tier 2. I think he wants to put some pressure down and then go into tier 2.
Yeah, okay, here's another thing. Shambler thinks the Skithricore is terrible. If he gets killed by Skiths, he will be typing. He will absolutely be typing. So he sees the Hydrith. He sees a bunch of eggs. There's actually an Ovileth in production as well. He saw 1 Skithricore. Will he know that there's a lot of them coming? I'm not sure. He needs to add way more anti-air defenses if he's going to do that. He still hasn't spotted the Vespine operation in the middle of the map.
No.
And Nathricor...
He's killed a lot of the units, but
yeah.
It goes... He has no idea. He looked around for that worker. I think he's looking for a third, but... Yeah, see, he's peeking around. I was like, where the fuck did the workers go?
Shambler has enough to expand his tech here and go for another one.
I'm not sure what the Ovilith is for. There's nothing in it at the moment.
Well, Nathricor does finally get stepped on. Shambler, you still have enough to tech up. Finally doing it. I felt like it was like a minute late. And yeah, the Skithricore stack is discovered here. We only have the 1 extra Spraith. We have no units on the way aside from a small spattering of Quasis. There's going to be 6 Quasis versus way more Skiths, 8 Skiths. This is absolutely going to be potentially disastrous here. The workers are going to be the target. A lot of them getting clumped up and destroyed and now forcing the burrow. But hey, if he wanted to, he could have still kept on. That's what the Ovileth is for, Meskets, to detect the burrowed workers, thinking a little bit ahead, but 2 of them end up getting bopped beforehand. We do have more Skiths coming to replace them. He could go for this.
He took a lot of damage from the from standing on the Spraiths for a while, but
his own Iris coming in the natural. And yeah, he's going to fly over. Yeah, you want to try to borrow those again, buddy? I've got an Ovileth for detection. It's not being focused down by anything. And yeah, we'll go ahead and fly on over and see what's going on.
Unfortunately, he left a bunch of workers. There's a big cluster there of like 5 of them that are quite low.
Yeah, he's suiciding the Skiths and probably also the Ovileth for the purposes of killing a bunch of workers. And he is now up ahead by over 15, so it's quite considerable.
Yeah. Shambler having that Quasi in the middle and warning him of that definitely allowed him to prepare appropriately. So all he really did was spend minerals on that, which, now he's looking good on gas, but he's not actually harvesting any gas at the moment because of that. All of his workers went on to minerals, so that's still conserved to hurt him in the long run. Meanwhile, the middle is still harvesting gas.
Yes, yeah, this is proving to be really good.
The Iris is sitting right out there in the open, just completely exposed. Now, the Skiths would have seen Shambler's Iris if he was following that, and now there's like 80,000 Zeths just flying across the map. But I don't...
A bunch of Nats coming as well. No tier 2 has actually been leveraged just yet. And we only now have a third base coming here for Hamster as well. So I'm not sure that this is going to be favorable for Hamster.
They're both morphing. They're Quasi.
Okay.
They'll turn into Calculus Wars.
Well, it could. At that point, I feel like Lyrilisks actually wouldn't be too bad of a choice, but we're going to have to wait and see. Looks like at this point, I'm still hunting for any other tech, right? Like, is there any other tech coming besides that? We have another hatch coming for Hamster in the main. Nothing else happening here. And falling back, Quasi v Quasi. And Shambler's actually been allowed to catch up in workers again. So that was a fleeting advantage, and you almost have to wonder if it was worth losing all the skiths.
Yeah, no, especially when the opponent's already tier 2. If you morphed them into Viths, it could have helped them in the long run, but now Shambler's calcs are morphing, and
Hamster's calcs are also morphing.
His calculus
And you know this, you have to give this to Hamster because of the extra Vespine in the middle that has still been not discovered. So Shambler is really only going to start shutting this down maybe like a minute from now when his calcs start hitting the field and they start trying to reinforce the ground army. Taking his own third, he's going to be a little bit late on that, but there's no workers actually harvesting from the third just yet. So we'll see what Hamster wants to do. His calcs have arrived. He's got 6 of them, and Shambler should be sitting on more than that right now, but actually only has 5, a 6th on the way. Where the hell did all of his other gnats go? They're guarding the third base, it looks like, so not actually mutating just yet. A single stray calc is flying off into the sunset. There you go, falls away.
Well, Shambler finally discovered the hidden base.
Oh, here comes the engagement here. The calcs are kind of stacked up from both players. A little bit of a split coming in. That's pretty good play coming out of Hamster. And the Quasis are actually dealing with the one stray calc that comes in from the other engagement. So Shambler, not really microing his units nearly as well as Hamster did in that fight, is now going to be a little bit worse for wear. He should have seen the workers harvesting from the middle of the map, but I'm not sure he actually clocked it.
Yeah. Yeah, that might have been just too stupid. Just like, nah, that's not real. Now, Bacillus would be a good choice at this point for either player, but it's just mass calcs. They're not really going to pose much of a threat against any of the heavier Zerg units. But I think they both have succumbed to Tism at this point.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to see what they can do. There's actually a lot of damage that comes out of these versus each other. They're very glass cannon-y, you can kind of think of them as. The Hatrosk is going to end up falling to the Calcs and the Quasis. And I honestly don't think Shambler has enough. I think that gas in the middle of the map really was the swing for Hamster to take this match, because I really don't see how Shambler can come back. He has more workers, but he's not actually on his equivalent bases.
Yeah, he's upgraded his defenses so he can hold out for a little bit. But when you look at the sheer number of military unit differences, I don't think they're going to make much of a difference against this.
Yeah. So, absolutely the case. There's a lot of Nathracors flying over towards 12 o'clock, and I can only imagine those guys will just swoop on into the main at some point, maybe as Calculusks, maybe as what they are right now.
Yeah, if they go in as Nats, I think they're just going to get eaten by the defenses.
Yeah.
But it could still draw Shambler's attention, and he's been trying to chisel away at the air on this army, but
yeah, there's just so many.
Trading instead, and yeah, the trades aren't going so well, but he's going to do quite a bit of damage to this. Those extra units were not here for Hamster, so they're still over there, and here they come now after the attack.
Yeah.
Largely been resolved right into the upgraded defenses.
There's
what's this tech here?
Yeah, there's 24 Nats, but he falls away as soon as the Calculus starts to attack him, and now he doesn't really fall away. So,
my God.
It's a swarm. It's an utter disaster. Hey, he actually ends up still having more left over at the end of that. So that wasn't very cost efficient, but he still has more units, and he has more resources as well, so he can absolutely afford to do stuff like this. The question is if Shambler can not just stabilize, but actually expand again. He needs to use his workers, and now Hamster's actually equaled him there, even though he's not really harvesting very bountifully from the third base location. Neither player gunning for additional ones at this point. Calculus, Snapper,
the one
Nat
having 9 kills tells a lot about that.
Yeah.
That was definitely a victory that Shambler really needed to get to pull back into this. He's going to take that third back, and units from Hamster just kind of like scattered all over the place, dying kind of uselessly at the moment. It's killing a lot of his momentum, and yet Shambler may not discover the secret base.
I mean, he surely should have seen the workers when his Quasis went up the ramp, but they don't have the range to actually attack them. So now here come the Calculus. They'll incidentally clear that out.
Yeah. He ran into them accidentally. I still don't think he knows they're there. They're going to die.
Yeah, they're going to die before he even looks at it. Oh, now he sees it. He sees the corpses. Wait a second. What was happening there? That was weird.
What was that all about?
Why did my guy have my opponent just decided to throw by throwing a couple of workers over there? Now, at the same time, we do have the Back to the Swamp complete. We'll have to see if it's going to be more Calcs or is it going to be anything else. There was one Kafralosk this whole time pumping Calculusks for Hamster, which kind of explains the numbers here. But there's a Larvos coming in the natural for Shambler. He's capping his gas
Shambler just sent a bunch of Nats into his base. or a bunch of Calculusks. There's only one upgraded defense. Every other base that Hamster has is completely undefended. His workers are very, very vulnerable at this stage of the match.
Oh.
If Shambler actually had the opportunity to do some backdooring, he could kill so many of his workers with absolute impunity.
Could be the case. We see both players still going for the handshake of building more Calculusks, but I definitely favor a Hamster's count here. Shambler's got about 5. Hamster has 11. There's a random worker here as well, maybe to do some proxy Kagrant. Probably just waypointed incorrectly. All the air going kaboom for Shambler, and his quasis are also starting to fall. The superior production here for Hamster is definitely starting to kick in. And actually, speaking of which, one of the hatches that Shambler just put down is now in the ground.
Yeah. Shambler really wants to hold this third. If he can hold his third, he's really secure in the game. If he loses it, it just kind of puts him back in the same spot he was already at.
Yeah, but his own quasis can't really close the gap onto the Calcs because of the fact that they were fighting Hamsters. Yeah, there was a bit of a dive from both players, actually, but I still think that Hamster is going to be able to maintain the momentum. He's got more units sort of waypointing over here. A lot of the Nats that just spawned are now mutating into Calcs. That takes some time. Hamster's units are puzzlingly sort of chasing after Shamblers, but I think it's probably going to be more than enough. Now we see a cancel come into those Nats. Only one of them stays alive, and I feel like that's probably going to be it. It's just stacking up a little bit too much momentum. Hamster's still in the driver's seat.
Yeah, Hamster is just pumping everything in here, but it's all low-tier units in the moment, but he does have some extra Calculusks coming. He did morph his back to his spot, but he's not doing anything with it at the moment. He's got more Calcs in the middle here. If he just groups them all up, he's going to have like 20 or something like that, so that's definitely going to be the killing blow. I mean, there's a chance that the Spiritists can hold it, but Shambler really needs to hold his third, which is undefended. So he needs to go in there and just build as many tier 2 defenses as humanly possible within this little window of time that he has. He's only getting 1 at the moment. That's not going to do anything. There's too many units, and it's already dead. Well,
there's still more units morphing, and they're only halfway done, not even. The Quasi's coming in as the same time as the worker transfer comes in, but I think he desperately needs this gas. Hamster, meanwhile, could take up the tier 3 if he really wanted to. That kind of shows you the level of dominance his economics have given him. He actually remaxed the workers in the middle of the map at some point, because, hey, why not? I've got the tempo again. Yeah. And this is just going to clear him out. GG is called. Shambler unable to stabilize, and Hamster takes the second match.
Yeah, that was... Shambler had gained back some traction a little bit before that, but he ended up throwing a lot of his units away, attacking past the middle, and didn't really recognize that, wait, my opponent is still richer than I am and still has more stuff coming than I do. I need to kind of group up. He got a little bit carried away at that point. So that's the kind of thing we're really going to be looking for him to tidy up at the moment. I've got to run an AFK just for a moment once more.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a roller coaster of a series so far. We are now going into the final stages of it, where we only have 2 more replays, potentially. 2 more games, potentially. If Hamster wins here on Victory Square, then he will go into the grand final without dropping a series. Only dropping the 1 match on Sideshow, in fact, where he tried something very non-standard. The match here, Victory Square, this map was selected by the Shambler, so he must feel pretty good about it. The last map, if Shambler takes it, will be Nitro Valley. We'll see how that one shapes up. Yeah, I agree with Sipiak, though, CMBW mono battles. I mean, we added like 80 units to the game, and maybe more, and that's just so you can pick 1 unit and use it. Obviously, the Calculus actually has like 2 flat armor pen, which combined with its passive actually makes it pretty egregiously powerful. But there's still counterplay. It just requires a little bit of setup. And that counterplay does incidentally give you more ground push, which is going to allow you to then also siege bases relatively easily. It's just that you end up needing like Bactylisks and Cycrolisks to deal with the Calcs. But, you know, the Bactylisks also would have mopped up all the Quasi, so there's another thing there that Shambler might have been able to use. But yeah, we're going on a Victory Square for real this time, Mask. Are you excited? I feel like that's
it's in Shambler's court now.
Yes.
Because now Hamster has shown that he has a firm grasp of what to do in Tier 2. I feel like Shambler's willingness to give into the cultism is ultimately what costed him that, because, you know, it's Hamster already showed like immediately into this fight, like, yeah, I know how to deal with these units, I know to split. And Shambler, for whatever reason, did not split. So I think Shambler had to recognize at that point and be like, okay, I'm going to be at a disadvantage numbers-wise with Kulks pretty much for the entire game at this point, especially since I lost my first one. So it's just, going to be constantly trying to crawl back. Rather than opt into the Tism, you should have maybe built more static defense in that third, the few times he had it, just very quickly get to tier 2 and that would have shut down the Calculus right away. Bactylisks aren't necessarily amazing because there was a lot of Zeths running around that could have been a problem for them, but Sigralisks could have been definitely good. Some mix of that, especially behind defenses, behind some Circus, Scorchriths. A couple of Bactylisks, Sigralists could have dealt a lot easily with the ground units rather than going into the straight quasi-Calculus, which he's just going to have a numerical disadvantage against. Because, you saw what happened when Hamster tried to take his Nat. It just was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
He lost tons of units in the main. That was basically Shambler's ticket back into the game, but Shambler ended up throwing a lot of his units away instead of hunkering down and trying to secure his economy. So Shambler really wanted to go back on the aggressive, turn it around as fast as possible.
Right.
But it wasn't going to happen because honestly, it was on a knife's edge for Hamster, because if Hamster did happen to lose a major fight in the middle of the map, he was just going to lose the entire game straight up. His tier 2 was sitting completely unprotected out in his expansion. He had no defenses in his third or his expansion. There was only some anti-air in his main that he made later on. All of his workers were just there to get absolutely annihilated by some kind of counterattack. There was just nothing protecting him anywhere. So if he lost momentum, it was going to be an absolute disaster. Whereas Shambler could afford to attack because he had a whole bunch of tier 2 defenses already up. And, they already showed that he basically couldn't even snipe the Quasis pool with 18.
Yeah, he attacked it once or twice and then, dip set immediately, right? So, yeah, I agree with that. The other thing, too, we'll get started on Victory Square. This could be our final match between these players because at this point, Hamster is 1 win away from booking his ticket to the grand final, and he will spawn on the top left. We've got horizontal spawns. The green Zerg in the top left, that's Hamster, against the Deep Periwinkle Shambler. That's a color name and a half. He is obviously in your top right. So I just want to point out again that Hamster had this play where he went for the pivot into Skithricors, and we should be watchful for that because he does like to do that. I'm still kind of on the fence of whether or not it was effective enough, because when you're fighting Zerg specifically,
a lot of gas doing that, but he had extra gas to spare, right? Because
he did.
He was mining from the middle the whole time, so maybe it's like a calculated risk,
right? Yeah, at the end of the day, he was able to equalize still, even though he had later tech. And he did force a couple rotations of workers out from all the hatches that Shambler had. The question is that effective versus Zerg, who can remax their workers a lot faster, right? It's a question of, do you have enough follow-up to then pressure because they built all of these workers instead of military units, then you can out-military them? But that's not what Hamster was doing. So Hamster will scout his opponent very early on. We're instantly going to see the Quasith pool. It's actually a little bit later for Shambler than it is for Hamster, which is kind of the first time that that's happened to this whole set, it feels like. But it's not late enough to be super consequential, and both of our players are going to scout each other relatively fast. So we should actually see, a fairly open and shut case where we're probably going to end up seeing, a very similar opener to all the other games, I'd wager. But the Hydrith in the early stages of that last game on Derelict, I think that's definitely pretty good. Now, Shambler is going to go ahead and go for the Kagran once again. This time a much more measured response from Hamster. He's only pulling the 3 workers, actually getting another one. I don't think he needs more than 3. The Kagran finishes and then it dies anyway. So it's going to force the cancel. A little bit of lost mining time there, but I don't think it's going to be enough to be super consequential. And now there's obviously the opportunity. Oh, Shambler's actually trying for it again, but it looks like it's going to get canceled there. Okay, he's going to pull it back. All good in the hood. Now,
I was thinking he was going to see if he was watching the gas in particular.
Yeah.
So he knows that there's Naths coming again. It seems to be quite confident just to get early Naths just to make sure there's nothing goofy going on and get a small bit of early pressure and then stop mining gas for a while until he gets his expansion out. When it comes to the Calculisks, it really surprised me that there was never any Vithrilisks at all. Because 1 or 2 Vithrilisks will, again, apply that armor shred to everything.
Yes.
Including all the ground units underneath of them, which there was always Quasis.
Yeah.
If there was anything else, it would help. It helps against the Calculus, so the Quasis can deal damage. Did Calculus have 2 armor?
I think 1 or 2, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Now, the Nats are actually in Shambler's base here. They could just dive directly onto the Quasis, but it looks like they're not going to elect to do that. Maybe around the same time now.
He really wants to fight the Quasis.
Oh, he does get a worker kill. There you go.
Gets 1 worker in, yeah.
Hey, every bit helps.
Vithrilisks definitely, even without the armor shred, the debuff is still very nice to have. They're relatively tanky. And, you know, he had the extra resources to spare. And then, you know, if he went like Vithrilus, Skith, Calculus, then he would like doesn't even really necessarily need a lot of ground units anymore at that point. Just to force things down. And I don't know. It just felt like defenses shut down Calculus very easily, especially the tier 2 defenses. And, you know, Shambler could have like tried to creep forwards. And, you know, his lot like the third on that map is really far from the net. It kind of felt like Shambler had this obsession with trying to fight it up front, which just was never really working. And the second, again, when Hamster tried to force down his net, it just was an absolute disaster for him, and he lost all of his momentum.
Wow.
But Shambler really didn't want to creep out or even use like the Obelisk to like transfer some of his tier 2s over there.
So here's an impactful move. We do have a whole host of Naths. That's 6 of them, 3 eggs, so 150 gas investment here. We have some Quasis out already here for Hamster in response, and he is making a spray. He did scout it proactively with his one remaining Nath, the one that ended up killing that worker. So I don't know that Shambler will be able to do too much over here.
He's going to go for the Nat, where he can do a lot of damage if he kills all these Quasis right away. Which he doesn't, so he kind of got a little tomfooled there. He's trying to try to force this down, but now there's enough Quasis that...
Yeah, I think his pressure is kind of diffused. He even invested in another pair of them after the fact, so that's 200 gas in total. He kills one Kagrant, you know, disrupts a little bit of the operation, but that can be easily replaced.
It'll give him a little bit of freedom on the map where he can...
Ooh. Interesting.
Quickly burrowed there, just even though I don't think... Hamster had actually quite seen that it was there. So, I mean, it'll give Shambler some freedom to try to take back some map control and expand really comfortably if he wants to. There is a Hydra's Den coming.
I'm a little bit worried, yeah. The Hydra's Den is going to be a big investment of something. We're not sure what yet. The Nats are growing in number.
This in tier 1 as much as possible.
He might want to end this on one base, Mesk. He's not even making a third hatch in the main, so this Droleth is just going to be burrowed here. Remember, his worker scout did get killed on the ramp, so Hamster has adapted to that. And now just mining Vespene from his natural as he gets a couple more Quasis, a couple more Spraiths in the main, and of course adding more defenses in general. So... You know, he's spotting the emphasis on the military movement here. The worker is now going to go for an expansion, but I feel like Shambler is a little bit rocky here. He's definitely behind in Vespene income again due to Hamster's early expo, and he's actually behind in production as well.
Tier 2.
Right.
So he wants to put on pressure before tier 2, and he's getting his own skiths.
Interesting. I still feel like with the Quasis and the double Spraith in the main, and soon to be double, or no, actually, this might be double Circuith here, it looks like. So, okay, you know, maybe he can pressure the natural, but there is a lot of Quasis out, and not actually that many workers to even kill. So, I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, well, I think his last going to be he's going to dive the workers. He just wants to kill the army up front. And I'm pretty sure he's just going to throw everything in a giant ball at him, which, I mean... I haven't seen this matchup before, but I feel like Quasis should do pretty well against mass. I mean, if Hamster ends up moving out and gets caught by this army, then it's a completely different story. But if he ends up getting caught inside his base, I feel like he should be able to hold it.
Yeah, I think he's got enough scattered defenses around to buy enough time for rotations. And the Nath even spots the Skiths and the Naths. So it looks like the Quasis are actually going to fall back. And the ground army for Shambler is just 6 Quasis. It's not actually in a position to attack. So it's all in on this air attack. And Shambler is behind in terms of production, is behind in terms of expansion and economy. He's only just now got his third hatch up at the natural as a Hydra's Den is coming in response from Hamster. So it looks like maybe he will actually force some Vespene production out because, you know, every unit, aside from the Azira core, costs Vespene. Here comes the attack onto the natural. There are some workers that could get focused down here. Instead, it's the Spraith, but... I'm not sure that's a great target when all these Quasis are over here. So he ends up losing a Skith and 3 Naths for that. It doesn't end up killing any workers, and the Spraith is just going to go ahead and remutate. Now is the time to pounce again. The Kagrant is going to get completely felled this time around. He's just going to try to abuse his mobility, going back and forth between the bases. Not sure it's going to be working out for him too much, but he has put some pressure on his opponent.
Yeah, Hamster right now he's taking some damage, but he's pretty comfortable at the moment. He can just keep building Spraiths and Quasis. He really feels like he's in a lot of danger. He's really obviously backing up for tier 2.
Yes.
Now, if Shambler had built Hydras, and then instead been able to put damage on the Circuits and then gone with Hydras, that might have been a different story. But it seems like Shambler is now just building workers up. I don't know. He didn't really get as much pressure from that as he really wanted. So
yeah.
that tier 2 could be on the way very soon.
Yep.
And then Shambler is definitely on a clock.
Yeah, he's just limited by a few minerals here. The Hydrothin now going to be targeted. Obviously a little bit erroneous. They're not going to be helpful too much, but he doesn't lose any units. So he ends up getting a scout off. We do have enough resources for the tier 2, and it does end up going down behind the main minerals. Very hard for those air units to sort of slice in and see that, let alone actually attack it or pressure it. So feels like that'll end up being pretty good. 23 quasis massing up here. A couple of them will be moved outside just to scout, see where the ground army's at. He lost his Nathracore that was patrolling the base, but he got one more scout off in the main just to see what was going on. He knows that this is a very heavy investment, right? The one thing about a mirror matchup is you kind of know that your opponent is building something, say like they're building a lot of skits or whatever. You know how much those units cost. So you can say, okay, this guy went for 50 gas per skith. He made 8 or 10 skits. That's a lot of Vespene, right? Now Shambler does have tempo on the third, thanks to his air units. He can pressure his opponent's third, which is only now going to be going up. That could be a pretty interesting move here because there's not really that much that can defend that. So I feel like Hamster is just going to end up canceling it once it gets pressured here. Moving some quasis over, but I don't know that it's going to be enough. Doesn't even borrow the worker there, and the skits hightail it out. There's 9 of them right now.
Shambler can afford tier 2 now. We should be looking to build that as soon as possible, knowing that he's in a dire situation at the moment.
Yeah, tier 2 for his opponent is already done. We've got a Kaphralos coming. We've got a Calcure Pond coming, so it probably will be fast Calculus production. Wants to skip out the gas cost of the Nathrakores themselves, and is going to go ahead and try to take his third once more. So for a brief period of time, Shambler will be ahead, economically speaking. The question is if he can continue the pressure with the skits, but he's not actually going back there. He's instead going to be flying across the map and seeing what he can do in the natural of his opponent. He has not, Hamster's not remorphed his static defense or anything, so that means that we are just going to be dealing with tier 1 static defense for now. Quasi's confirmed. There's still some forces on the high ground here by the natural. And the skits are actually hanging out in the middle of the map.
There's no existing Naths for Hamster, so...
Yeah, he's starting to make some.
He's making calculus all the Kaphralos because he has to make the Naths too. So this is actually going to be probably a little slower than he really wanted. This gives Shambler some time to try to catch up here as tier 2 is only just about to finish.
He's ahead economically. He still has the worker lead. His base is done and has been for a while. And he's got map control.
Stacks of tier 2 defenses all over here. He is going to be quite well insulated against all but very, very dedicated calculus attack.
Yeah. And his skits are continuing to patrol the path in the middle of the map, sort of shutting out any attempt at information gathering. He's got a nice Nathracore spread in the around the third, so he'll spot any air armies leaving through that way. And we do have the third up right now, but Hamster's first course of action is actually going to be to spend a lot of money on defenses, which is an apt choice. He's got a bunch of quasis here, so he should be insulated versus the Skithracore stack. Takes them a little bit too long to kill the ground units that are spread out like this. So they're starting to clump up a little bit more, so that might be a little bit different here. But yeah, they're standing in front of the Kagrant. The Skithracore attack and the Calculus attack both get reduced damage when the projectiles pass through individual units. So that ends up being a pretty big deal. Now we do have Calculus morphing for Shambler, but there's 8 of them already here for Hamster. So this is a kind of like a knife's edge moment, because if those cocoons end up getting targeted at any point, that could mean a pretty much quick end here for Shambler's army. It looks like he might be buying them enough time, but the Skithrakores are melting. Ends up canceling a bunch, has a bunch of Nathrakores over here. They do end up finishing. There's more arriving for Hamster. This is a very, very tight fight, but it looks like Shambler's going to hold.
Split that time.
No.
And that cost him really heavily. If he had split right there, he could have won, but he really just wanted to try to force it down, and that ended up backfiring. Now Shambler can start making those tier 2 defenses that'll keep him pretty well protected. And I feel like, I don't know, if Hamster had just gone straight for that expansion, he might have actually done quite a bit of damage for those lists. But
it could have happened.
Now it's morphing, so it's going to be much harder to deal with. There's just a lot of quasis are coming now. But Shambler had that third base for a little longer, although Hamster is now up in about the same saturation. Shambler's getting a fourth at just finished and not mining at the moment, but if Shambler can hold this and Hamster need a little point onto this open area too much.
One worker ends up dying to the gas, on the gas rather, to the Calcas, and indeed there is another attack coming, but again, catching him while most of his calculists are mutating. This is a really good timing for Hamster. And he's now going to sort of naturally split his forces. Some of these are on a move command. Oh no, Shambler might end up conceding the military advantage, and he's now going to be driven back. His third is in jeopardy, or his natural rather.
Yeah, that was not very good timing for Shambler there. He doesn't have hardly any money. He's trying to build what he can, but morphing in front of them again.
Unsmiley face from Hamster to close things out. That's not a GG, but it's probably as close as we're going to get. Oh, there it is. GG is called. There it is. Hamster will take the set. And yeah, I don't know. I thought Shambler was on track to end up beating Hamster here in this very match, but it just didn't end up happening.
A little bit of miscontrol and misplacement.
Do you
think that Shambler intentionally throws just to get the mystery meat?
Just to fight him again? I don't know. I would be scared of mystery meat on a rematch because he's like, at this point, mystery meat's like going through the gym, you know, hitting the gym montage, Rocky training montage, trying to see what he can do because he is not happy that Shambler won that set. He thinks it was undeserved. He thinks Shambler has no honor. And et cetera, et cetera. So I'm kind of expecting that to, you know, I think maybe Mystery Me will train up enough and he'll be okay. But we'll find out. The 3-1, you know, you did say it could be a 3-1, 3-2. Hamster.
Not expecting it for Hamster.
Right, yeah. What are your thoughts? Since you mentioned Shambler is favorite, I can see where you're coming from, but I was really nervous for Shambler here because I've seen Hamster just like kind of walk in here and pick it up pretty fast and then start to slap people around that are in theory supposed to be more familiar and higher skill level than just some random newcomer, right?
Yeah, well, the first game is obviously not a good one for Shambler whatsoever.
Yeah.
This game here, it felt like, and the second game, the second last game, it always felt like Shambler was getting a little too aggressive, pressuring too much when he didn't really have the posture to do so. And he would throw away the advantage that Hamster gave him. Like, Hamster was showing some weakness in unit control, a little bit of over-aggression, and other stuff like that. But when Shambler was given those opportunities, it felt like he tried to pull too much off of it. Instead of trying to be more leveled out and consistent, taking the opportunity to stabilize rather than, you know, the opportunity to try to end the game off of it or whatever. Like, the second you see the defenses there with his calculus, it's like, no, this attack is over. You got to pull back right away because now he knows where your military is. He pulled back and then he moved into the army instead of attacking it. So that was really bad. And when you see your opponent doing nothing but attacking your choke point like that, what do? You just build tier 2 defenses there and then they just squish it. His circuit wasn't even morphed there, so it didn't offer really too much help at all. And the anti-air defenses he had were in unrelated locations. Like, I think the second you recognize that, oh, my opponent's just going to keep doing the pressure thing again. You just build some of those tier 2 defenses that just shut it down. Like, there's honestly in Zerg versus Zerg in tier 2, you really should never be losing bases to calculus. Like, they're good against killing other air units and tier 1 ground units. So you just don't opt into those fights. But every time you opt into them, when you're at a disadvantage like this, it's like you're opting into losing every single time. Yes, he got his units killed early on, but it was clear that, you know, he still was just going to keep sending more. And the second you scout them and it's like, oh, you're just going to keep doing this, then you just build something that deals with it. Don't keep trying to morph calculus in front of it. Like, it just felt like Shambler's head just really wasn't in the game for that. And that was definitely the case where I could see Hamster pulling out games as if Shambler really wasn't making, like, the best decisions or started throwing or whatever. And it definitely felt like he was throwing in that third one.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Like, he just kept morphing his calculus in front of his army over and over and over again. Like,
it's like a case where he didn't rally with enough forethought, right? You know, there was some interesting. I think Derelict is my favorite match of the set because we got to see somebody use the middle of the map in a nice way where, like, his opponent just didn't factor that in, didn't even think that was a possibility. Who would do that? Who would just harvest it with no defenses, really, just 2 quasis guarding it and nothing else? Yeah. Like, it's so easy for me to step on.
There were periods where Hamster had nothing there because Shambler came in and killed them all, but he didn't just quite check where the resources were, so he just kept harvesting.
I think Biddybee's going to be happy about looking at that and seeing, like, holy shit, that, you know, somebody used it that way, because that's obviously his map, so he gets to have a little bit of joy with that. But the other thing, too, that I look at is I think looking at that match too, the fact that he brought an Ovaleth to like proactively detect the workers that burrowed, it was a cool idea. Hamster's full of cool ideas. I don't know if the execution was super good in that. I don't think that the execution was super good with the Zoryus play, but it was a cool idea and it could work. You can see the thought process. Absolutely should be something that people watch out for, because going into the future, like if ZVZ ends up being a match that is played by, another Zerg qualifying to the grand final, or a random me who ends up rolling Zerg or something like that. Like if that's something that happens, that could absolutely be a thing that you got to watch out for, is these sorts of plays. And even without that, it's like maybe somebody does go Zorkis just to go for Zoryus and bank their gas otherwise in another matchup. Like maybe Hamster tries that against Terran, and it's like a bio Terran that normally deals with like tier 1 Zerg pretty well, but ends up getting bopped because of the Rilla cores. Like who knows what happens. So that's the kind of stuff, like I'm all about that shit. I think Hamster was he's kind of proving to be a bit of a fan favorite here. So I'm pulling for him, and I'm happy to welcome him to the grand final. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about Calculus, because, I mean, obviously they got fixed, so they're definitely a lot stronger now than they were. I don't feel like they're, like, super overpowered, but I feel like they kind of need to build away from Calculus Quasi when your opponent's building Calculus Quasi and you are losing fights because you're can't get the unit counts. It's
down to unit counts. It's down to unit control.
I don't understand the obsession of fighting into that comp with the same comp when you're already losing with it. Like that's why it's overpowered, because he keeps having more units than you.
Right.
Like half the time he doesn't even need to micro. You just are at a numerical disadvantage and keep fighting away from your defenses. So just like build stuff that's good against them.
You would think that would be an option there. I mean, I think even if you're doing Calc v Calc, if you mixed in Viths that you mentioned earlier, and you protect them from the Calcs dive bombing into them, at that point they're not actually
if they focus all their damage on a Vithrilisk, that's all the damage that's not going into your Calcs.
Yeah.
So just split them up and you're good. I mean, Hamster showed us that in that Derelict match right away. Just split the Calcs. No, he wasn't as consistent with that later on. But, I mean, then that's another case where you can abuse it with this, just like debuff them and just... Now they take more damage and they attack a little slower. And, if they focus on the Vithrilisk, well, that's great. That's 150 minerals as opposed to the hundreds of minerals of Calcs and shit I just built elsewhere, right?
Well, another thing that's kind of interesting that I'm not sure Shambler was aware of, because I don't know that he ever scouted his opponent's base after the sort of Calc train got rolling. But in Derelict and on Victory Square, we actually saw Hamster build a single Kafralask, and that allows him to skip the gas cost.
3 of them in Derelict. Actually.
Oh, okay, interesting. I didn't know he added more.
3 towards the later half of that. Yeah, he made more as time went on.
And that allows you to skip the resource cost of the Nath. It skips the time and the resource cost of the Naths. If all you're trying to do is build Calcs and you don't necessarily even think they're going to die because you're going to preserve them, then you don't need to remorph them after the fight,
just allows you to keep up the pressure, right?
Absolutely.
Like, the time part is really the most important thing about it, is you just skip having to wait for them to morph. And that is definitely when it's like you just build tier 2 defenses. If you've got like 4 or 5 Spiritives, that's going to shred their Calculus, and they just don't deal enough armor penetration to gut through all that shit, which means he has to bring his ground units. So now you have some Scorchers, your own Quasis, your own Calcs. Now you've really forced him to respond to you. Now he has to do something different, and then that gives you breathing room. And it's like you can morph them there, you can creep forwards, just like with Queens and that really like shitty Warcraft 3 knockoff Starcraft 2. You can, just there's a few different ways you can do them there if you can't hold your third or whatever. But particularly in Victory Square, where Shambler already had forward defenses, he didn't have to lose any of his bases to that attack force. It was too small, and he had resources and an economic advantage for a while. That when you get a beat on, I think maybe it was just like a misread on the game state or something like that. But I feel like that, Shambler is a sunken farmer. He knows the holy way. It just didn't really respond to it in exactly that manner. But really, even without any of that, morphing his Calculus in front of the enemy army several times in a row, and then ending up in that situation where it's like, oh, I have to fight this because if I cancel them and I lose all the time I spent morphing them, then I'm going to lose anyways. Well, just don't put yourself in a situation where that's going to happen. Move them back a little bit. If they're attacking your Hatcherask, they're not going to kill it in 2 seconds, especially Calculus. They're just not really great at killing buildings. So that gives you time to morph them and then respond. Or, this is different ways you could go. I feel like Shama got just a little too arrogant. And as a result, he got absolutely destroyed. That's definitely not the outcome that I saw.
Absolutely, yeah. And when we're thinking about the outcome that we saw here, we obviously have to turn our attention to the lower bracket. mostly because Shambler's there now because he lost and typed, but also because Mystery Meat versus Keen is up next. This is a random versus Zerg set, and the winner of these next 2 series that we're going to be casting, the winner of those 2 series are going to fight each other in Elimination 3, and the winner of Elimination 3 is going to fight Shambler in the lower final, and the winner of the lower final is going to fight Hamster in the grand final. That's how this lower bracket whole thing works. The next 4 matches that you guys see from this tournament will be taking place in that lower bracket before we return back up to the upper final, or the grand final rather, and actually see who takes the crown home. And again, to remind people, the grand final will be a best of 7 as opposed to a best of 5. And Hamster, as he has qualified without dropping a series, he will be able to both ban the only map. He is the only ban of the whole set, probably going to be Ex Situ, and he will be able to pick the starter of the series as well. That's his advantage, you can say, his reward for getting there undefeated. And honestly, besides the Sideshow match, which was almost like a little experimental, even though Hamster has looked a little bit rocky, it's really impressive that he ends up only dropping 1 match. And obviously, he did drop the 2 matches to Mr. Meat in groups, but as far as playoffs have gone, he 3-0'd Biddy B. Okay, maybe Biddy B's kind of, you can maybe argue that he's a little bit fool's gold as a first placer. Like, we're not really 100% sure how he even managed to get 4-0. Like, that was crazy. And then we go into the next set. Okay, neblime should be a real test, right? They only narrowly got 4-3. Hamster narrowly edged him out in a sort of like practice match set. No, it's a 3-0. And it's all on 4-spawn maps with neblime's, sort of way to win, his modus operandi being macro. Like, how did that happen? Hamster just 3-0s him. Okay, he comes into the Shambler set and he 3-1s him. Like, this guy, I don't know who can defeat him. Maybe it has to be Mystery Meat. Maybe Mystery Meat has to make the miracle run. And if that's the case, it has to start against Keen in Elimination 2A. So that's our next set. I figure we can probably take like a 5-minute break or so and come back to it if that works for you, Mask.
Yep, sure.
All right. Well, with that being said, we are going to head to a short break. We hope you guys will stick around because this next set I think is going to be maybe not as epic as the upper final was, but maybe more epic. It really depends on whether Keen actually practiced. So let's see if he can beat his meat. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Elimination 2A. AAA is coming at you. We got Mystery Meat taking on Keen. Mesk, I gotta be real with you. I don't know if Keen ever actually did any practicing.
I don't know either. I hope my boy's got it in him. He's got to come back. He's got to beat the shit out of Shambler. Then he's got to eat Hamster. And he's got to take his rightful place in Valhalla. But can he beat his meat? Does he know how to beat his meat? Has he been tenderizing his meat? Does his meat come pre-beaten?
These are all important questions. I feel like
this will be a very hard matchup for him either way.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem here is that Mystery Meat, as the higher seed, elected to ban 2 maps. And, yeah, as expected, Keen... well, I'll finish writing out the map veto, and then you'll end up seeing... funnily enough, Ex Situ did not get banned in this set. So
I was going to say, if he bans both Ex Situ and Infinite Velocity, I'm just going to alt F4.
Yeah. Well, Keen had the same pick as Hamster, interestingly enough, so let me just figure out our remaining maps here, and...
it's Overworld again.
It is Overworld.
Otherworlds.
All right, I've got the pick banned.
Otherworld. Now it's being first picked all the time.
Yeah, I wonder what the deal is with that. I think maybe it's just a map that Keen recognizes. Okay, so Mystery Meat banned Victory Square. Keen banned Derelict. The reason he bans Derelict is it's the alphabetically first map in the list, by the way. He has no other reason why. And Mystery Meat banned Sideshow, so Keen picked Otherworld to start. He did the same thing against the Shambler, as I recall. Not for the first matchup, but when he was down 2-0, he picked Otherworld out of the remaining maps. So he must have some idea, like, oh yeah, I remember that map. That's the one with the Otherworld that I never used. So there you go. So that is going to be our set here as we get ready to start. So yeah, I mean, just thinking about the way that this map is set up, obviously, it seems okay for Zerg. They can take the in-base faster than the other races can. I mean, technically, Terran can do a treasury, but we haven't seen that actually show up.
No.
So
if Mystery Meat rolls Zerg every single match,
yeah,
and then
this could be good ZVZ practice.
Zerg, yeah. Then yeah, that'll be just it'll be like the tournament hasn't changed for Keen at that point.
Right. Well, there is a chance for that, yeah. So remember that, guys. Mystery Meat has gone random. You can hardly forget that. I mean, come on, dude. The hype video had it all. But the other thing to mention here is that Keen originally was supposed to play this set yesterday at around 9 p.m. Of their local time, which actually they're in the same time zone as you, Mesk. Instead, Keen was like, wait, I haven't practiced enough yet. Can we play tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.? So that's when they actually played, is 7 a.m. And
that's too early.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah, so...
Nope. Humans are not supposed to wake up before the sun sets.
Yeah, that's how...
That's not right.
That's just how Keen is, though. He decides to play at that point.
I can't imagine playing like how I feel right now. Jesus.
So I think that does signal to us that we are going to have an interesting series. Maybe a silly series, but an interesting one nonetheless. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this one in action. I'm suspecting, anyway, that what we're going to end up seeing here is like... I mean, I think a lot of it is going to be, I know this is kind of boring to say, but it's a lot of it is down to the first match. We need to see what Keen's form is in. We can't really use the past matches as reference, unlike we could with Hamster and Shambler, where, like, okay, Shambler actually played as EVZ early in the tournament. We can use that as an example. That's where I came with, like, if Hamster finds himself in similar situations, he should be favored to win because he's not going to make the same positional mistakes that Keen made in that set. But, like, we have no idea. Has Keen played? He said that he likes to do a lot of single-player practice. Has he done that? Like, we don't really have the information we need to make accurate predictions. And if we're just going to go off of the actual tournament form that we know, I think we would both be in agreement that Mystery Me would be favored massively.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Keen managed to find Neblime and just like squeeze all the juices out of him and slurp them up and enter his Super Saiyan form. Because now we have Hoop Thrower Super Saiyan, which is Hoop Saya. Now we need Keen Saya.
That's true.
And if he hasn't managed to pull that off yet, then... Well, I feel like we're going to be looking at a 3-0 very soon. Unless he, again, you know, if Mystery Meat just rolls Zerg every single time, that is something that Keen does have familiarity with. So he shouldn't really be too stressed out about that, especially since it's quite unlikely for Mystery Meat to do what Shambler did 1-1.
Yes.
I don't think that his response, even if he knows, oh, my opponent's just going to go meatless, I'll just go calculus. I don't know if his execution is going to be quite as pointed as what Shambler had there, so I think that there's definitely some wiggle room that Keen would have in such a matchup. But if it turns into like proxy anchors and proxy engrams and all the other bullshit that Mystery Meat might be inclined to try to do, I don't know if he's really going to try to do it against Keen. I mean, I would expect him to try it at least once. Because, well, Keen is shown to be susceptible to cheese in group stages. So I think that, it's Mystery Meat's chance to really just... Yeah, but then if he announces his race every single matchup, like, is that even helpful for Keen at this point?
Yeah. It might
actually give him a false sense of security to not get cheese.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Well...
So I don't know, but I think that if... it's going to obviously be very dictated by the random.
Yeah.
If we see Mystery Meat never getting Zerg, then I think that... I mean, regardless, it's going to be done if Keen managed to get some practice in or not. But even then... Mystery Meat Zerg is his weakest, but I mean his early game against, like I said, against Shambler, he was able to get quite a few wins in when they were practicing and figuring out builds.
Yes,
so,
it's the mid game and late game that's the weak part.
Zerg,
right.
Yeah. So that's still something that can catch Keen off guard. But I think at the early game, Keen will be. I mean, he might lose like once to it, but I think that he will. That's the most familiar part of the game to him, so he might be able to hold off on that. I don't know, but.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, we could be seeing the Mystery Meat villain arc, too, because if he decides to not share his race anymore, or worse, share the wrong race, like,
yes.
We don't know what's going to happen, right? Can you even take him at face value? That's the question. But, the mind games are definitely there. I don't think Keeney's even aware of that, so, like, he could get totally...
he could be the first to be trolled by
yeah. So, but again, like you said, would it even change his play? I think maybe Mystery Meat will sit on that strat for a little bit before he actually does stuff. So, all right. I think that means we are about ready to get started on Otherworld. Mesk, do you think that Keen can do it, or is this Mystery Meat series to lose?
If Keen got in at least a little bit of practice, I think he stands a good chance all the way up until we hit like tier 2, and then things start getting really weird for him. There's probably a lot of tier 1 stuff he's also not really familiar with.
Especially from the other races,
Yeah, a lot of stuff he's just encountered just cheese, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, we saw a lot of indecision of him against Shambler, so I feel like just in general, it's Mystery Meat serious to lose. If Keen did practice, I don't think it would be enough to close the gap between them, just in terms of raw experience and comfort with the project. But if he's able to perform mechanically consistently and recognize when he has kill pressure and stuff like that, then he should at least force Meat to play well.
That's what I want to see.
I think he can take at least one round off him.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. I want to see Keen force Mystery Meat to earn this victory. I don't want this to be another rollover like it was when they met in the last tournament. So, Keen, let's see what you got in you. Will you beat that meat?
Beat the meat, Daddy.
All right, we have Mystery Meat rolling Terran in the bottom right. He's taking a while to order his workers, probably because he just woke up and it's 7 in the fucking morning. Terra is indeed the race, so he's going to be honest. And Keen, the Zerg, indeed, the lemon Zerg in the top right against the blue Terran in the bottom right for Mystery Meat. And thanks, indeed. I would also say thanks. Thanks for rescheduling once again, you motherfucker, making me wake up at 7 in the morning. That's probably what he meant to say, but I finished the sentence for him. I did have a brief talk with Mystery Meat, actually. I was like, if people really fuck around with the schedule, I think maybe we should start looking into DQing them, even though that would suck from the perspective of like actually watching a tournament. And Mystery Meat was like, nah, it's fine. He just wanted to practice. So, Meat is apparently fine with people just fucking around on him. So maybe that'll continue to happen, or maybe he'll decide, wait, my Meat has a spine bone and, stand up for himself. But he's got a Chad Energy picture. I'm still waiting for that Chad Energy to come out. He is getting a stockade.
I don't know.
Kind of bog standard.
Up at 7 a.m. Humans don't do that. It's unnatural. It's inhumane. It's literally torture. It destroys your brain. It's just not right. I feel like that anybody who's actually willing to wake up at that time and destroy their body and their brain is not someone you can trust, and there's some shenanigans afoot. What kind of practice was this? Was he literally just beating his meat in preparation to absolutely annihilate this poor fool? Or was he tenderizing his meat to get beat? Oh, there's tickling.
There is some tickling. But I wouldn't expect much to come of it. A halfway done macro hatch in the main is what Keen is doing. This probably is him thinking, dude, I really, really, really need to not play this ever again. Who the fuck plays Zerg and puts a macro hatch in their base as their first structure? That's probably what he's thinking, because he's probably thinking from Brood War logic, this looks like a troll build. But no, it's legit. It's something you can do in CMBW. So he's had to learn that. That's already kind of boding a little bit well for our theory of, has he practiced at all?
It's the Shambler build.
Yeah.
He's doing the Shambler build. He's copied Shambler like a doppelganger. He's wearing his flesh.
He is. And, you know, Shambler...
He's even building the K-Grid.
Shambler took it from Hamster, minus the K-Grid. So...
Oh, well. That flash is being passed around just like my sister.
It's going to be...
He really is. But that, I don't know, that's not even really that useful against Mavericks.
No.
They can just go around and attack the other side.
Or
they can even attack the Quasit pool, I think.
Yeah, they can. Yeah. Here he is.
It's not super useful.
What's going on, dude?
He's going to walk right into it. Oh, no.
He lives.
Right.
He's off.
He pulled back everything. He was going to all in.
Yeah, Keen doesn't even know that you can outrun the tentacle in this, because we're not dirty fetishists like Blizzard. Well, the stockades are obviously going to be a little bit idle for now, as presumably another base is being started. Yeah, okay, it's in the back here. Okay.
It's on the back, yeah.
Interesting.
He's creeping towards the Otherworld very, very creepily out. 2 Naths are on the way.
We like Naths.
I don't know if they're really going to do too much against mass Mavericks, but it will probably catch. You know, that's the funny thing. This may not think, oh, I'm tired. He's probably not going to make Naths, but I don't know. I mean, does he even really care? He's just going to make Naths.
Yeah. He has 1 pair of Naths, and a second pair is hatching. They will be en route, but there's a lot of Mavericks over here, so I really don't think that's going to make too much.
He's got a couple Zets. I guess he could try to fight it with all of them, but
yeah, I don't think he's going to be.
He didn't send the second pair down, so
yeah, he's just going to scout with this first pair. He will see a star pad and think, "What's that?" And
there's a worker that's not harvesting. It's petting the other workers. Keen.
Oh no! It's petting.
It's happening to you now.
Look, he copied the petting. I can't remember who did that first. Was that neblime? Yeah, it was neblime against Hamster on the on the lower bracket, or the semifinal there, semifinal 2. Yeah, he had some petting going on in Victory
Square. The Nats
Square.
came down, got tickled, ran away, and now the Zets are coming down.
They walked right past the Maverick.
They went right past the Maverick.
Well, a Hydra Then on the way here for Keen.
Mavericks can't burrow, but he's channeling the energy of Shambler.
Yeah, of course. Just hang out there. Got some idle Nats.
Hasn't even tried to expand yet. I'm a little perplexed, but you know
what? He said that he was surprised to see how much eco you could generate off of 1 base. So I think he's kind of feeling that right now. But, you know, Mystery Me does have access to another geyser and another ridge, and can probably drop a treasury at some point for his in base if he wants to. The Zephyr cores are burrowed.
All the Mavericks.
Yeah, they are burrowed. So another random stimmed Maverick is just running around here, seeing what's going on, sees the in base being taken, coming back over here, darting backwards, left to right and center. Hey, get out of here. And the Hydra Then is finished. Of course, that will have been clocked by Meat.
I mean, you've seen that mass Mavericks can be quite effective against some Zerg tier 1. I was actually really surprised at how much I was able to get off of just mass Mavericks.
Yes. Yeah.
It's actually going to be Skiths, though. So
that's interesting.
That's different, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think they were used very much against him in the ZVZ set that he went up against. You know, Shambler did use them in the early game in one of the matches there that they played on Victory Square, actually. Now,
against the Mavericks, I'm pretty sure the Mavericks win. But,
yeah,
I mean, if he's somehow able to repel this attack and not die terribly to the sheer manliness of Ahmed and the single-filed mass Mavericks, if he had some circuits here, I feel like he'd be able to hold it. But if those actually went into Meat space, Meat would have a very bad time. But there's actually a Wraith coming there to spot these out right away.
I kind of want to see the Wraith, you know, dart in and just sort of attack the workers and then pull all the air units and allow the Mavericks to get up the front. But I think at this point, you know, that might not end up actually happening. The Wraith's sort of trying to find a good posture just to idle around right now. Now he's going to go ahead and think about it now that he's got a second one with him. So he's going to actually kill a worker or 2 here, I think, using that. Yeah, one of them does go down. The reaction time, not exactly there for Keen, but he will go ahead and respond. Admittedly with everything. Now splitting off part of his army, but this is where
he knew the army was going to come. He had the sense to know that there was an attempted pull here.
Yeah.
And that man, a chunk of Skiths went back, and they got some damage in on this, but Achmed is really good against Circus, so he's just finishing those off.
A lot of these Mavericks are really low, though, so I think the rest of the Zerg Air is going to be more than enough to deal with this. The Hurakkans are going to charge forward and start burning down the workers, which start to burrow to try to avoid the pain. They're kind of effective for just delaying it, but yeah, Achmed's still loose. You got 3 Achmeds to deal with.
Yeah, he's ignoring the Achmeds and trying to deal with the Wraiths that right over here. He does manage to kill them.
But look at the worker differential at this point.
Yeah, he's not in a good spot for that. He can possibly pull out of this, but Meat's looking for tier 2 now.
Oh, he even kills a Kagrant that was mutating. That's another worker dead, basically. So not so good there. Keen trying to stabilize, but admittedly, the rest of the army here for Mystery Meat is nowhere to be found on the other side of the map, right? He's
banking for tier 2. It started.
He's actually going to go ahead and try to scout around the left-hand side of the map with this Mason. So I thought maybe he was going to think about his own, third base.
I think he's curious if Keen has another base or not because, he didn't really GG out or whatever. I mean, there wasn't really enough damage, but he knows he wants to just make sure that, he's at the point where he's at, that he thinks he's really far ahead, and he just wants to confirm that there's no secret hidden bases. I don't think Keen has really been too keen on the hidden bases, but there's not really much defenses here. There's nothing guarding that, so he snipes that out. There's one watchdog in that third, which he could just either ignore it or attack it, get the workers to bundle, and then start dealing damage to them. But
that's right.
He doesn't really have enough skits now to really put a lot of pressure as one wounded Maverick guarding his third there, but he's going to take the forward base instead. More skits are en route. He has no interest in tier 2 at the moment. He's trying something different rather than going for mass Muno, which in this circumstance is actually probably really bad because Meat is going to have his choice of the litter and how to deal at this point. The tier 1 Zerg is not really going to be too much difficulty for really a number of things he can do with tier 2 Terran.
So the Wraiths walked over here, got decloaked by the Borrowed Zeth, and then just sat there and waited for the Mavericks to kill it, which I was I thought that was a funny interaction. Just had to highlight that. We have Mantles coming. So something that Mystery Meat, I did a practice game against him, and I was very aggressive with actually Quasith with a Lechizilisk drops, and eventually he reposted me, built some Sentinels, and then just massed a bunch of Cataphracts. And it was actually really quite difficult for a tier 1 Zerg that's not really fielding any heavy hitters, right, to deal with that, right? So absolutely something that I think will come to dissuade Keen from investing so heavily into some Vespene. He's going to try to chase these Wraiths down. He should be moderately successful in that.
Yeah, I remember that's like in that FFA I went early Cat Facts just because it's hey, you can get these much faster now that the Fountainhead is ready. But they just weren't really that useful at that point, and I wasn't able to really get enough of them. But they are a little stronger now. And, well, he's making Ramses at this point, which, I mean, still, there's not quite as much oomph in the Ramses, but it's still, like 200 minerals, and that's it. Line trace damage. They'll be pretty good against the stack of quite a number of skits at this point, actually. I don't think, he can build almost anything from there. Durandals or whatever will do very well at this point.
It might even be preferable to get a 1 or 2 of those in there, considering the circuit spam on the low ground base there for Keen. Yeah,
you'll need some way to push into here. Keen is very far away from tier 2.
Yeah,
especially so long as he keeps making air units. Which there is a window of opportunity where he can do a lot of damage here. Cat Facts are on the way, barbs and all, but they're gonna be halfway done, and this army is going to hit, and he can at least get some eco damage in.
I do think he should be able to pressure down some of these watchdogs. The question is he going to recognize the power of the clumped, Ramses here, the line trace damage and stuff? He's actually ignoring the watchdogs entirely, just picking off a lot of workers. That's his sort of Brood War instincts there. He ends up sniping 5 of them and shutting down the mining for just a scant few moments. In exchange, he loses a Nathracore and a Skithracore, it looks like. Maybe 2 Nats, actually. So, not a
He doesn't know about this third base yet. Yeah. If he just flies into it.
Which it looks like he will. Yeah, this is actually a second Watchdog being set up, but it's only halfway done. So his units are, they actually have vision. So they're revealing where they are. The Cataphracts are complete, in fact, and a couple of them are on the way as well. 2 of the 3 Mantles already spinning. Iral Iris coming here as the base is under attack. So Keen is trying to catch up in terms of the resources, but right now, he seems to be okay. He's shutting down some mining, but only temporarily.
Iris is being built out in front.
All the Nats are wiped out by the Ramses and the Mavericks, and there's a Shaman now to help sustain versus the lower damage Skiths that are much more better at dealing with, like, dealing spread damage essentially across the army. The Shamans are a great way to reduce the efficacy of something like that.
There's going to be a lot of Catfax. Meat's army is pretty minimal other than the Catfax. He's just going to stack up Catfax. And he's going to run right into them.
Oh my god. Yeah.
2 armor pen on those now. They're actually really quite dangerous at this stage.
Yeah.
And now it's amass quasis, and yeah.
That's the exact situation I found myself in, where I had a lot of quasilisks and a couple of Kizilisks, but there was detection plus cataphracts that just made the whole thing sort of evaporate relatively fast. So looking at the cataphract stack here, they are going to be slowly marching across the map. Mech is very immobile. There are some Wraiths heckling the reinforcement point. And an Iris is going to be spotted. We have a back to the swamp on the way. Second Wraith sort of moving around here. Still no anti-air defenses, so this is going to be a little bit annoying for Keen, but shouldn't be too consequential. He's trying to set up a 4th base in the meanwhile.
Getting tickled.
Yeah.
It just attracts his attention when at this point, what he really wants is to have armor penetration, some way to get in on them, lots and lots and lots of units to force their spread attack to not hit valuable targets. Probably an amount of Bactylisks maybe is what he's going for, but he's not going to have the unit counts necessary to deal with this at the moment.
Yeah, it's surprising that he was even able to respond to getting a tier 2 relatively fast, considering all of the air units that he made. But at this point, he's going to have most of his ground army funneled through this thin choke if he tries to hold it. Cataphracts are already starting to form a line. We've got double Shaman, triple Shaman. They could deploy at any point to spread that healing out. He needs to surround
this army from both sides. He needs to be very executive about this. Get the front, get the back. But he's tunneling all into the front here. Only a couple of units are getting auto-pathed around to the back, so his units are getting stuck on each other. Precisely how Meat wants this to engage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's just throttling them.
Yeah, the Shamans are also deployed, like these Cataphracts with 3 armor, getting healed by 3 Shamans all at once. Like, it's really, really quite hard to burst this down. You really need to be going for the Shamans, which I'm not even sure Keen is aware exists. So, a 4th one has arrived. They're sort of frontlining into the circuits right now, which isn't super great, but it's going to be enough.
Yeah, these aren't even tier 2 defenses, so
yeah,
against this army, they don't really deal any lasting damage.
Yeah, well, I'm looking around for a response, but it looks like it's just Iziricors, yeah, and they are going to get shredded out eventually. They don't die very fast to the Cataphracts, but there's actually enough of them now, and GG's going to be called. The Terminator strat ends up coming up clutch here for Mystery Meat, and, that's kind of how we expected this sort of game to go. We did see some nice flourishes from Keen early on, but we definitely saw his unfamiliarity with the kinds of things Terran can do and the play pattern that you get with the tech up. That's the kind of thing that you just wouldn't be aware of unless you practiced a lot versus somebody like Mystery Meat playing Terran, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if he had tier 2 circuits and then had surrounded that army as it went in and came from the back and just put in a ton of damage on them, and then because I'm pretty sure Catfax can only attack in a cone. So if you surround them, then you're suddenly taking less damage. And then you can also single out the Shamans with the Hydras and stuff like that, and then have Bactylisks and whatever. But he didn't have Bactylisks. It was all tier 1, and it just got completely annihilated, just getting funneled into there. It was absolutely depressing.
Yeah, even if he was able to surround him, I still don't know that his army would have been able to pierce that, because it was all tier 1 units, and none of the defenses were upgraded, as you had already mentioned. So
you really needed Bactylus to just throw in crooked dongs, splash around, get them low enough that you can actually start focusing them with all the rest of the units. It had to be done very, very decisively, probably as he's moving into the defenses, which are preferably tier 2 defenses that'll deal some of their own splash damage.
Oh yeah, I mean the Shamans sort of frontlining that fast, they would have been dropped quite low if they had done that versus Scortriths, for example. And they might have even allowed the secondary weapon to proc nearby the Shaman to any units that were nearby. That could have stacked up a lot of damage comparatively. So we're going into Ex Situ mess. We're finally going to be seeing
it's cheese.
I hope it's cheese too. I mean, listen, Keen picked it. He's familiar with the map. He got cheesed on it all the time. But is he going to be ready for Mystery Meat to roll Terran a 5th tumbleth time in order for us to get another set? Let's find out as we get into it. Now, again, Mystery Meat being random, so far has been honorable with his race. He hasn't actually changed it up. Maybe he feels like he doesn't need to. And we will have Keen On the left-hand side of Ex Situ, the Neon Carrot Zerg against Mystery Meat's Palatinate Blue Protoss. And you know, Mystery Meat plays a game as Terran. He hunkers down to tier 2. We get to see a little bit of the tech.
Is this a 6-ball?
I think so.
It's a
Now, the thing about this is Mystery Meat doesn't even have his pylon up yet, Mask. So he's, I was going to say he should be ready for this. He should be ready for any sort of action. He does put a pylon down pretty close to his base, but he's not going to scout early enough to actually spot the Zeths, right? So the question is, what is his first structure? If it's a gateway, maybe he can get it up in time. What is this? What? Okay, here we go. What do you like more? Tacos or Labyrinth? Labyrinth? Is that you?
Labyrinth?
Holy shit, I thought you just died from the internet. I thought you were just gone.
I think he did die. I haven't seen him for a while.
Yeah, well, the Quasith pool is up.
I think that he took the wrong burrito.
He did. I still remember
oh my God.
One of the last posts I made on campaign creations was me making some song or video or something stupid, and I posted it, and it was like about campaign creation stuff, and Labyrinth commented in the thread, and I replied, "Did you even listen to it? I even talked about your tacos," and I never got a response. So, well, the Zeths are obviously on the way. We have a Warden immediately responding. The gateway is not even done yet, and there's no Vest being harvested, so this will have to be a Zealot or Legionnaire coming out of the gateway. Got a little bit of money here. He can probably go for, I would say, a Zealot. Yep, that's going to be what it is. The Warden is a little under halfway done. Takes about 30 seconds to complete, and it's going to be the Gateway trying to be burst down. This is probably the best target that he could go for, because he's not going for the pylon, right? So going for the Gateway, this allows the Warden to get a lot closer to completion. So now there's going to be a scribe pull.
He is tickling.
And tickling is done. Now the one problem is it's actually out of range. Oh my God, he's actually going to kill the Gateway Mask. Or is he?
It has 16.
There we go. He actually finishes it off. Okay, well, I don't know that Keen is off to a spectacular start, but at least his 6-pool didn't get insta-hard countered the way that it did when he did it against the Shambler in the last tournament, if you guys remember that. So he stands a chance at potentially getting into an advantageous position. I don't think that Mystery Meat has ever played against a 6-pool as Protoss, or if he has, it's probably been a while. His response, Mask, Vassals.
This is why people ban Ex Situ. It's cursed.
Now, the Zealot was selected as it walked across the map, and the Zethar did spot it, and it should have spotted the Zethar, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Instead, Keen realizes, hey, there should be a Zealot on the way, so I'm going to make some Zeths.
Some Zealots.
Zethlets. That does remind me, there was the... Oh, man, what was it called? It was Zelling? Literally Zealot and Ling. And it was like a Zergling that had Psyblades. It was like some Kitbash. Interesting idea, but obviously somebody would just use it for fucking hybrids, and then I would cringe, so...
Absolutely cringe.
Yeah, just call it Zerg Ultralisk. Second Warden here for defense, and indeed, Lattice is building Vassals. So.
Yeah, it's... I wonder if Keen has... Keen's dealt with that. He's had Vassals on him before.
He has, yeah.
Stages?
Yeah, absolutely. Has been tickled by... Mystery Meat himself actually was Protoss that tournament and tickled Keen with Vassals on this map. So... Absolutely.
He is making some quasis. He's got I cut some quasis en route. So he's gotten so pissed off by this Zealot, he's actually pulling his other Zats back across the map.
The Lattice,
which is unfortunate because if he had just face dove them into his base, he might have found the Vassals ahead of time.
Absolutely pranked, TBH. Yeah, so the Zealots, when they have shields up, they move faster. They move about as fast as a Legionnaire. Now, 6 Vassals are on the way. That's the magic number that was being waited for. We do have 6 Quasis almost complete here for Monsieur Keen. He's actually making a couple more. Yeah, he's actually got 6, and he's got at least 6 more on the way. Make that 8. So I think he'll be okay, you know?
He's going to spot the Vassals with those Lings. So he knows, wait a second, my opponent's getting air units.
Yeah, what's going on?
That's a good thing I made quasis because, well, there's air units in my base now. Tickle.
Absolutely tickled, TBH.
He's focusing a lot on these Zeths right now.
Oh,
so
his main, yeah, his workers are getting absolutely annihilated. Keen, burrow, quick. Keen, do something. You're under attack. No, Keen, don't lose all your workers. Oh god, he lost all his workers. Oh.
That's a disaster.
It is a disaster. Well, he's now down to 5 workers. Make that... Nope, 5 workers. Well, okay, 4 actual. Keen is playing Brood War, and he's just started. That's what he's doing. He's just started a match of Brood War with that worker count.
He's attacking with all his quasis. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Vessels. One of them died terribly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a 3rd Warden on the way, but it's fairly isolated. Keen does have enough, military to potentially be kind of devastating here. He's slowly mining with the now 5 workers. He has built his 5th worker as the start of this match.
It's so depressing to have 3 hatch rocks and he can't even do anything with them.
Yeah. Oh, what? He calls GG without even waiting to see if his army is going to move. I don't know that it would have done anything, but Mystery Meat is going to be more than happy that he woke up early and this is what he was served.
What an autistic match. Holy shit.
I just like the tacos versus burritos, the 6 pool.
Yeah, I like how he got him. He's doing the Shamblers, right?
Yeah.
To get some chatting.
Yeah.
Doesn't even have to be salted. Meanwhile, he's 6 pooling you. It's just to keep you distracted.
He kept typing as the Zethra were halfway across the map, seeing the scout scribe. So, like, Mystery Meat's like, oh shit, I gotta focus. All right, well. Mesk, I think we just get on with it. Nitro Valley, a 4-spawn map. Keen needs to shake that one off and say, whatever. I just need to win this like it's a best of 3, or best of 5 rather, and I just don't want to lose a single map. That's how I treat this one. Yep. Lemon Protoss in the top left. That's Mystery Meat. Midnight Green Zerg, top right. That's Keen. I'm Jerg.
Jerk! July Zerg!
That is.
It's going to be a drone drill.
I hope so.
He's just going to pile into his base after his Overlord spots him, break the ramp with his drones, and just win the OSL.
So for you, tacos or burrito? Well, unfortunately, I don't have a second Lava story, so I can't really specify. I mean, I guess there was the story where I just slammed his vent with like 1 million fake accounts. And he was not happy. Nor would you be.
Oh, Labyrinth.
Oh, Labyrinth. Well, there's going to be, once again, a very close pylon. Not trusting Keen to not 6-pool again. But we know it's actually going to be a fast expansion, interestingly enough. Is there really even anything that we can do as a prediction, though? Like, he gets his expansion. He types true in the chat. We got Gateway coming for Mystery Meat. I mean...
Me is just scouting in the completely wrong direction, and Keen isn't bothering to scout at all. So I think Keen is just going to try to bulk up and then maybe mass quasis or something, but only now is he scouting. So he just really wanted that money as fast as possible.
He will scout his opponent first, so there is that for him. It looks like instead we will have an end scout coming out for Mystery Meat. So jumping up there, we're going to end up seeing him spot his opponent.
Necron strikes again. Happy birthday, Necron.
Happy birthday, Necron. In fact, I think the person whose birthday is next, let me actually check my schedule here. Well, we have Balethal on the 8th of December. Dude, happy birthday, Necron.
Balethal. Happy birthday, Necron Lethal.
And Lethal.
And Lethal. Well, just one gateway at the moment, so he's not super hard committed. He's actually banking a lot. So I think Meat might also go for a fast expand.
Yeah, he's just going to have his gateway going the whole time, and he should be able to take an Nexus.
If it was Nats, he would have just died.
You know what? It could be, because he's not actually moving a worker proactively. Okay, now he is. I was going to say, you know what costs the same amount of minerals, rather, as a Nexus? Is a Grand Library. But that's not going to be it.
Yeah, but if this had been a Nath, he's getting Naths now, but if you had Naths already done, Meat would have just died. I mean, it's a hard call to make in a 4-player map, but, if 3 Crow can do it, I think anybody can do it.
If 3 Crow can 6-pool into Naths, I think Keen can 6-pool into Naths, but he'll have to win this game to get another opportunity to do it, since he hasn't done it this time around. We have a second gate coming around the Nexus.
You know, it's still another Zealot. Only now is Meat getting gas. We'll see if he actually makes a ward in here or not, which it kind of doesn't seem like he really wants to at the moment. Oh, the Naths are after his Zealot. They're tickling.
Yeah, they've broken the shield, so this is an opportunity for them to really stick on and do some damage. I think the Zealot is... its days are just numbered, man. Not much that it can really do. 15 HP and losing. One more shot, and it bites the dust. The Zealot is going to come in from downtown, but it'll get a face full of Quasi as the Naths make their way to the natural, just to scout out what's going on from Keen. He's only now got a Dracodon out. It is the old sprite, because... it's been so long since we've actually seen Protoss that I've forgotten what the old sprite looks like. Don't worry, next tournament we'll have the new one.
Tickle, tickle.
A little bit of shots exchange.
Going on there, sees the thing out, but he also sees this expansion that's just entirely undefended, and a lot of pressure can come out from this.
He's got a lot of Quasis on the way, yeah.
He might be able to... kill the Dragons. I mean, he's just making more, so... as long as he doesn't overcommit when there's 3 of them and then just... baits them out, but that Zealot's going to get tickled here.
Yeah, well, the Nats could have actually kept the shields from regenerating and then kept it slow. That would have allowed the Quasis to catch it, but a little bit of a misplay there from Keen is not going to be enough to stop this push. I mean, the Quasis are actually engaging onto this. I'm not sure about the wisdom of this play, especially with the Nats harassing the workers. Okay, well, there's only 1 worker, so maybe it doesn't make too much of a difference. Quasis are going to charge up the ramp. I would have maybe tried to force them onto the low ground, especially with that Warden in play. I'm not sure that Keen can do too much here, but he's going to try to tickle the gateway to death. It's not going to be as effective with Quasis as it was with Zeths, for obvious reasons. He's hemorrhaging a little bit of attention as he's rallied more Quasis in.
The Scribe survives with 6 HP.
Don't worry, that one surely won't... Oh,
nope, nah.
Nah, XD.
XD.
Well, 14 Quasis are still here. This is a pretty high number of units, and more of them are actually on the low ground. They could be attacking stuff. A pylon being added to maybe expand the area of control that Mystery Meat can do, but he's stacking up a lot of Dracodons now, and Quasis do not do well versus those. It's going to be some Zeths coming, as well as some more Quasis. We would have to see some Vorvs to really start pressuring this, but now that they're actually shutting down the mining from the natural, I feel like Keen at least salvaged something from his early aggression.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to try to force the Nexus down here.
It's not a bad play, but unfortunately, Mystery Me was able to take some pot shots at him from the ramp, which still conferred a cliff advantage. Not really the case anymore. All the Zeths have died, so too have the Zealots. But yeah, I think at this point the Dracodons are going to have to fall back, and instead he's going to see what he can do to tickle the Nexus some more. Going after the workers.
There's no more reinforcements coming at the moment,
yeah.
So Meat's going to hold this pretty well at this stage. He's lost a few units, but we're getting flashbacks to the Shambler game where there was a lot of pressure in the early expansion, but it kind of got floundered. At least he got some worker kills in it. It slows Meat a little bit, but Meat is ahead of him on workers by 6 now. That's going to be quite substantial, but now he got double Atrosk and then that.
Yes, yeah.
And another one in the main, so
yeah, he's going to be
really
spiking up.
To end this.
Yeah, he wants to spike up to a lot of tier 1 production, see if he can just flood them. But as the Dracodons get to this like sort of 300 sort of phalanx position that they can get themselves in, where they just have like they're covering each other, they're reducing the surface area. I'm honestly not really sure what you can do about that. They've got the range bonus. He's got 8 Dracodons. He's adding some Zealots now for the front line. That's going to be much needed. The most you can do is like attack the Nexus or something from a safe distance. See if you can force it down. But right now, Keen is thinking about his options. He's starting to bank a little bit of Vespene. Does he want to explore tier 1?
Authority is in. The second that an Canner comes out, I think that all hopes of a mass tickle bust are pretty much over.
Yeah. I don't know, it could be that Keen just wants to have a lot of production so he can get a lot of workers. We're going to see. The 2 Zealots are marching over to the 3rd and then scouting the 3 o'clock location to see if that's where Keen has taken some more bases. But in fact, we know it's actually even bases, and there's actually a worker deficit still here for Keen. Not actually macroing up too much, trying to protect himself from any
he's worried about mass vassals again, but, you know, there's no lattices, so...
Yeah, well, for all he knows, those come from the gateway or something. So. Zealots are going to get tickled on their way in. One of them will surely die to the defenses. The other one just scouting around to see what's going on. He's not going to make it up the ramp, so he won't really see too much. But when you see 3 hatches on the low ground, you might not expect there to be an extra one on the high ground as well. It's going to be another round of workers here, it looks like, for Keen. So just macroing up right now, both of our players, and there isn't a Cantor on the way.
Yeah, there's no envoy for it yet, but I don't think he really actually needs it.
No.
Especially at this positions, he can just march it across the map.
Yeah, the thing about...
Keen is close to tier 2.
Yeah.
So he would have had it already if he didn't build so many hatch rolls, because he can't even max out at the moment.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, if he doesn't die within the next, 2 minutes, he could get Melis or whatever else he wants. But that's, hypothetical, where he's just about to get stomped by this slow crawling... A Cantor that's going to be joined by an Architect, likely before they actually make it to his base, because they're all just getting hung up on it, wiggling aggressively.
That's the honor guard of Drakidans. They're making sure Icor stays alive. Never mind.
They were pushing him along aggressively.
Yeah, get out and help push. Well, it's going to be a lot of workers here for Keen trying to catch up, economically speaking, and saturate his bases. His tier 2 is a little over halfway done, but as you mentioned, Mesk, this army is massing up. Not really any info here. This could be an anti-timing where Mystery Meat's able to make something happen. Actually, a defensive engram warped into the main because he's not really sure what to expect. Is it going to be an army of Skithricors again? Well, no, not quite. It's probably going to be a return to Keen's favored mass muta play. It's just we're probably about a minute and a half away from that actually coming into fruition. And the attack is not a minute and a half away. The attack is already here. At least some tickling.
The tickling is occurring.
He's going to see the Cantor and think, oh, look, a Reaver. And then it's going to shoot him up the ramp, and he's going to say, what the fuck? Well, this is the first time for everything.
If it follows the Quasi straight into this outgate, no.
It's not. It's taken 1 point of hull damage, a little bit more actually. This one Quasi doing a little bit. There's a big committal here to try to snipe it. It's about halfway dead, and the circuits are being engaged. There is a Hydrith Den on the way. I thought that would have been a Mutat's Fire, but it's not. Circuits not upgraded, so they will eventually fall. And honestly, I mean, at least the Hatcherosks are making a little bit of a makeshift wall here, so the Cantor can't immediately burst them down. But there's a lot of pressure coming out here, and he only now has the Hydrith Den complete. That's not a tier 2 structure. Architect is here as well, laying in some shots. Positrons
the whole
have
position
arrived.
Zealot has taken so many hits for the team. Holy shit.
Yeah, it finally
the
does.
Quasis keep gluing onto it instead of attacking anything else.
Yeah, there's just so many units here that I don't think Keen is even aware of. I was looking around to see if he ever built a Mutat's Fire or anything, but
it just
not going to happen. Yeah.
He started it and then GG.
Yeah, so the GG is going to be called, and that'll be a very comfortable 3-0 for Mystery Meat, exiting Keen away from the tournament.
Some blue Quasis came out of those eggs.
Yeah, they're neutral now. He just wanted to see what he had. Sees the Mutat's Fire, and Mystery Meat does this from time to time. He's going to have his victory lap as he comfortably 3-0'd his opponent. And then we get straight in to the post-match discussion here, because Keen has exited the tournament. He is gonzo. Yep. It's donezo. It's absolutely over. And you know what that means? It means we only have one set left to find out who faces Mystery Meat in Elimination 3. Did this kind of go how you expected, Mesk?
I thought he might have put... he didn't put... He did put on some pressure, but I don't know if he only practiced Zerg versus Zerg, or if he just only had really the time to look through the maps or whatever. It seemed like he had more of an idea of what he wanted to do.
Yes.
But Meat just was like, okay, I'll just go tech.
Yeah.
And in each case, the tech just annihilated him, except for the time he alt F4'd out of the Vassals. I mean, the Vassals was really him not burrowing and really he's focused on the main of Meat and not his own main, so the Vassals kind of tickled him to death. He may not have realized that, oh, he saw them, and he thought, but they're in his base. There's not really that many of them. But no, there was a bunch of them in his base tickling him, and he didn't quite realize that until it was much too late. Otherwise, I think that was the game he was poised to win. All he had to do was just not have all of his units across the map when he started getting tickled, or at least burrow right away. And, I mean, the other match was Meat had to get to tier 2 to really put him out, but it was clear that, the tech switch happened, and then he just died.
Yeah, that seems to be the case where I think at this point we're getting to that stage where we're recognizing as a just in general, like there is an established set of, okay, maybe Keen's a little bit out of practice, but he's an experienced Brood War player. He's probably the most like mechanically skilled, sound of a background RTS player that actively participates in these tournaments. Maybe Hapsaya will dethrone him in that respect, but we never really got to see his actual level of skill, right? Keen never really got to show that off, barring maybe 1 or 2 matches where he took the Shambler to the distance, right? And in this situation, in this tournament, I think he's probably going to look at this as a bit of a disappointment where he wasn't really able to actuate his skill and apply it, because there is actually a deeper strategic level that is untapped from Brood War. Not to say that it's, like I personally think this is better than Brood War, but it's kind of I also think that it's like a higher skill ceiling game than Brood War. And it's just that that's not something you can convince a lot of people of until we get the Koreans to start playing it. And then it's kind of like an imaginary what if, an impossible question to ask. I just believe that is true. Maybe we'll get to some magical point later on where that ends up being the case if people actually try that. But yeah, I don't know. I look at that and I think, Keen probably thought maybe he could do something here. That's what he was trying to practice for. And it just didn't work out for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unfortunate. I was hoping he'd at least take a round off. But he just kind of got squashed every single match instead, except for in Vassals, he kind of like squashed himself almost. So, kind of more or less ultimately what I expected. And, watching, especially with the Cataphracts, it was like there was an opportunity to at least try to make something happen there, but it was not just the lack of tech that was really killing him, but a lack of how to approach certain situations. That he just didn't really show some real executive decision making to at least make the most optimal attempt to not get hung up in this choke and get annihilated. Some of the surrounds didn't go as well as it really should have. And he recognized more or less what to do with the skips, but he didn't see the base on the minimap rotor and flip back and be like, oh yeah, I can do something about this. There's just a lot of little awareness things that, I'm more inclined to say, dude, people are sleeping at 7 a.m. You shouldn't be playing games like this at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
It's just, don't do it. It's just not healthy. And, And I felt like everybody was asleep, except for Meat, who kind of just was I felt more or less that Meat was just kind of on autopilot.
Yeah.
The Six Pool caught him a little off guard, but the rest of it was just okay, I'll just be calm, tech up, and then just take it. And, it's just that comfort level, it didn't really matter. I think it felt like almost anybody could have done that. And, at least Keen was showing a willingness to do some different stuff and try some different things, be a little bit more aggressive, be a little bit more executive about trying to be aggressive. So, show a little bit more, gradual willingness to do that. But I definitely think he's going to need to hit the Kiwi gym and try to really get a bearing down on those timings and those tech switches and knowing what the scouting is really going to tell you and what comes out of where and what does what, and so that he can be armed with more information he really needs to make those decisions more appropriately, not play at 7 a.m., stuff like that. And I really was hoping to see some more out of him, so
right, yeah,
hopefully in Ascension 7.
Yeah.
7. Holy shit, it's 7 fucking tournaments. It's all a bloody blur of pain to me at this point. And hopefully by that point, he has a little bit more time to get into things. He'll have more time to prepare for the tournament and come in and appropriately find Shambler and beat him with his own meat.
I want to see Keen come back and definitely do better, I would say, in general. I definitely think he can. It's a question of, is he going to be satisfied with being, banged out in the second or third rounds of eliminations? Last time he got a little bit deeper. This time, maybe, things are just a little bit different. We got a higher skill ceiling. He gets banged out earlier because he doesn't practice, right? That's absolutely something that can happen. So I think when we look at it from that perspective, I think, I did expect him to look stronger. I did expect him to have had a little bit of practice, but it comes down to that. If you're not able to make time for it for whatever reason, then you're probably going to get banged out by a more experienced player. So, Mystery Meat gets to start his day early with a nice dub, and he gets to maybe go back to sleep after that. I don't know what he does, but Now he's moved on to Elimination 3, and he awaits the winner of Neblime versus 3Crow, which is our next set. And this is actually a rematch of the third quarterfinal, funnily enough.
3.
And that is 3, yeah. Third quarterfinal, Elimination 2B, which is the third set of today's cast, and 3Crow. Does that mean it'll be a 3Crow 3-0? I mean, I'm not sure about that, but that could technically happen. What do you reckon?
I would love to see him 3-0 in Neblime with just nothing but cheese.
Yeah.
Just like displace him just with just cheese, just raw cheese and nothing but cheese. So cheese me, God. But I mean, now that the whole Solarian thing is out, I just don't see Neblime dropping rounds to him.
Yes, yeah.
Unless he really, really practices and hones in and manages to flip out some other tech switch or something like that, that's going to be unexpected. Neblime's just generally more consistent. I did feel like he was playing a weaker game in some of those than what I might normally expect. I definitely think that his Zerg is overall stronger. But even so, there is just a substantial difference in the multitasking, macro ability, and general focus at that stage that shows just like a deeper layer of comfort and overall time invested that cannot be gap closed that easily. So while I think there's an opportunity for 3Crow to maybe take a round off of him again, I don't think it'll be with Solarians. And unless he manages to ping pong the Solarians off of some kind of early game bullshit that puts Neblime in a stage where he can't build a response for it. Because Neblime's going to be looking for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, as I don't think it's just going to work as it did before, where he kind of got sprung on him. And I think, well, I hope Neblime is a little bit more decisive than he was in that Infinite Velocity game. Had a really large advantage, but got kind of timid. It's not really the kind of... I mean, I'm more accustomed to him just spamming drops and all this stuff like that. But even again, in the games with Mystery Meat, when he won that Grand Finals, it was... You know, a lot more aggression came out of him up to a point. And I feel like that he'll be more decisive about, or at least I hope he'll be more decisive about knowing when to actually use that in this. And, you know, I just don't really see 3Crow being able to win a series against him. Maybe, you know, it's cross time because 3Crow does play a lot. He'll gradually improve, but there's a substantial difference. I don't know what Neblime's overall playtime with Brood War looks like. I feel like it has to be quite a substantial amount. And it's just, you know, you just get that muscle memory ingrained into, like, when I was at my peak for, like, Starcraft 2, which was deep into Wings of Liberty, I was at a level, like, I was in the highest brackets. And in the beta and stuff like that. And that translated into Ricky's Warlords and Merchants map. And even when I would struggle with multitasking, as I always have, it was still at a level today that was absolutely, like, I can't even fathom how well I played back then. And then when I was at my peak in Brood War, that's just because the amount of time that went into it and the consistency that went into it. That is a gap that's very, very hard to close. Just with somebody jumping in. Because it's all the little nuances, all the little things that you overcome some of these problems with multitasking and paying attention and focus and stuff just through raw muscle memory. And then that's why the training regimes of the Koreans is just unapproachable by the Westerners, because the Westerners don't have the discipline. Americans and Europeans, whoever, they just don't have the discipline that the Koreans did. And that's why the Koreans were just really untouchable competitively. It was just, you know, Westerners would practice, but they wouldn't have the discipline, the kind of discipline that these people went into. A lot of times it was forced. It was just how the gaming houses and stuff worked. But that discipline ultimately is what makes the difference. It's not just that Koreans are like superior in every way. You know, they're just so perfect and so feminine and so squishy and so, you know, petite. You know, it's also just the discipline. Is worlds apart.
Even the quality of the practice that they make is higher because they are making sure that they're practicing with some amount of purpose. Whereas maybe you can match the raw man hours, but you need to be switched on during all of that, and it leads to a lot of burnout. Like they chew up and spit out a lot of players. But at least in the 1v1 type of games, you can have players with incredibly long careers that have won out because of that discipline, right? And so, you know, that's definitely a point taken where I think even if 3Crow plays equivalent games to neblime, he needs to play them and not just play them, but also like really think, okay, what is my plan here? What is my opponent going to do? Actively thinking about the game while he's also doing the multitasking and doing the play, and like having his own game plan, but being able to respond to that based on what his opponent is doing, and kind of like feeding that in. And that's the kind of thing that neblime actually is much better at, I would say, beyond any micro skills or like better macro routes or whatever. It's just he knows what his game plan is, and I think that that's the main advantage that 3Crow had with the Solarian pick. Going into this, we have a very different story. Our first map is going to be Derelict between these two players. As the higher seed, neblime banned 2 maps, which of course I will send you the veto now. As expected, neblime banned Ex Situ, 3Crow banned Victory Square, and neblime banned Highwater, which is interesting. He actually left that open versus Hamster. Now 3Crow has picked Derelict, which means that we probably will end up seeing Infinite Velocity in this set, but it really depends on what, you know, whoever ends up losing this first match ends up picking. So going into this one, I would predict neblime is the heavy favorite. I agree with you. I don't think that he can really be stepped to by 3Crow, especially now that the cat's out of the bag. 3Crow will have to surprise him otherwise. So that's probably pretty much all that needs to be said. Mesk, are you ready to get into our final set of the day?
I will be in about a minute.
Oh, there you go. All right.
The coffee is running through me.
The coffee is going. Mesk is also going, and so are we. Get ready for Elimination 2B. And we are starting things off on Derelict, neblime, the blue Terran in the top right rather, against Alice Blue, Protoss of 3Crow in the bottom left. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the most one-sided match that we will see, but maybe he'll do a little bit higher, 3Crow that is. Maybe he'll go a little bit better than Keen did. I feel like on paper this should be the most one-sided match, but in actuality that Keen matchup might be the most one-sided. Somebody asking in the chat if the mod is free. Yeah, I don't think you can even sell mods, bro. Definitely look into it. Check out the chat. Mesk, can you believe somebody just asked me if this mod is free? Now you gotta pay. you gotta pay me $100, dude. $100.
Who the hell sells mods?
Probably Steam.
Well, Steam doesn't have any modders on it.
There you go. Facts and logic. Stockade coming in for neblime in the top right. And yeah, I was saying earlier while you were letting the coffee go that 3Crow. This should be the on paper most one-sided matchup. Oh my God, 3Crow, what are you doing? You can't do that.
You're not walled in there. You did. You got. There you go. But you're trapped. It's a cage match.
What the? What? What? What?
He realized that he was trapped in.
I'm not trapped in here with you. My Mason deals more damage than your scribe, motherfucker.
Yeah, he realized that, and he was like, fuck, it's all over. So he quickly bailed out.
I mean, you gotta salute the man. The balls on that man.
I like how neblime didn't even have a comment about that. Nobody actually said anything.
That's fine. Just sitting here to give you some early minerals and then
neblime's looking for another proxy. He's so aware that something stupid is afoot, but no, it's just double gateway.
Oh, here we go. Have an anchor.
There we go. Have an anchor.
Tickle.
Tickle.
Hey, all right, see ya. You can have that.
Bye.
Just leaves him a pile of scrap he brought from the warehouse.
Yeah, well, he's going to just kill the scribe with his Maverick, and then he's going to come back and resume it. But, I don't know. If this Draconin gets finished, then this will be up. It's over.
Well, the Draconin is about halfway done. I think the anchor will finish before then. And the pylon will be the first target, but obviously that doesn't have to be there. Another Maverick stemming across the map. Now, listen, boys. neblime did this to 3Crow before. Can he do it again? Ironically, I think that the pylon would have gone down faster if the anchor ended up being paused, and the Mason was the one to help out, you know? Down. Yeah, and in we go. Ah, couldn't quite load him in.
The Mason wasn't amazing, but amazoning.
Hey, there's 3 HP on that Legionnaire. The Draconin now also quite low. Stimming after him. He's going for... Oh! God, absolutely.
That was a little ballsy there because, I mean, the Legionnaire had all of his shields back, so...
Yeah, well, not only this, one of the pylons is getting targeted here, so it looks like it might end up falling, but...
Barely keeping that alive. Just whittling that down there as...
Zealot is out. This is going to be the committal here, I think.
Yep.
Zealot will go ahead and tank most of these shots here thanks to its extra armor, and the 2 Mavericks will be eliminated. You know, if that was a 3rd Maverick in there, maybe that fight would have gone a little bit differently. But, all right, handshake. We've done our silly moves in the early stages of the game. It's all normal now, boys. It's all normal. No shenanigans afoot. We do have an expansion out nice and early for Neblime. Who could have guessed? And yeah, there you go. That's an early route. I like 3Cr's positioning. He's like,
now he's also looking for the proxy.
Is that really all that you had? You gave it up a little early, easier than I was expecting. All right. Well, I'm glad we got to see some silliness anyway. Neblime is going to go ahead and pull some of his workers down to the low ground. He actually is doing that a little prematurely. So I'm not sure. Oh, I think he was worried about a bust or something. He's just guarding the ramp. Okay, now we're going to add another anchor. See what he's going to do. He has a decided macro advantage thanks to his continued macro. I mean, at some point, 3Cr just stopped building workers altogether. Only has 14 at this stage of the game. And this is sort of what you were just talking about when it comes to like reps and practice and instincts and all this other stuff. Is like, what is your default assumption? Like, what are you thinking exactly? He's got a Cyprian and he's making...
Does he have vision on that army there?
No, not quite.
Yeah, this could be really bad for Neblime, actually.
Well, there was the one Ahmed.
Wait a second, there's nothing in there.
Yeah. Okay, he's going to charge on pass, but the one Draken is really, really low. Oh. Trying to evacuate it, not going to be quite possible there. He's only going to be able to get a couple of worker kills out of this, if anything.
Trying to run past that was actually the wrong decision because there's only 1 Maverick and an Ahmed in that bunker. If he just focused down all the units, he would have done a lot more damage there, but instead, he tried to run past and then fight and then run past again, and the trade ended up going absolutely terribly for him. Now he's 16 to 31 workers is an absolute travesty. There's a vestry coming, and I think Neblime can just go for a bio move at this point. He has to know his opponent's really hurting economically to have invested so heavily into that.
Well, he might be assuming his opponent actually built workers. We know that is not really the case. And I feel like there wasn't really a reason. It's not like he was cutting. He just forgot. And that, again, we were talking about the Goliath, David versus Goliath, mismatch here. In this case, Neblime has Goliaths that he can build. Probably not in this game, but something that he can do. And he's going to live up to that rep, I think. I really... We'll see. Maybe 3Cr will have a better early game start. Maybe he'll pull off the Warden Rush. But it was really funny that he tried to do that right in front of his opponent. And then kind of botched that 3rd one. Probably didn't have enough
if he hadn't gotten trapped in there, he might have been able to pull it off. But
maybe, but
unfortunately.
The thing is, Neblime knows how to worker glitch, right? Because he's played Brood War. So I don't know if that's true. I feel like probably not going to be the case. Now, getting an Ardent Authority, not necessarily a bad idea. Maybe you can get some Acantors, hold on out. But at this point...
I think he actually goes for Positrons, because he definitely likes Positrons. Acantors are probably going to be a little expensive for him, especially if he wants to get an Envoy with it as well. But Positrons are much cheaper, still very effective against Bio. And he has built them quite often versus me, so I know he likes to go Positrons.
We had the clerics chasing after a stimmed Maverick scout, and they're like, "Baby, come back! Don't leave me!" And he's gone. Neblime pulls him back. Star Pad is finished. We should see an Anseal out of that at some point because we know that Neblime likes his Anseal scouts. See if that's what he wants.
If it does turn out to be like an Acantor or something like that, and it gets scouted, it's just gonna be absolutely tragic. But
all of his units moved away to anticipate some kind of.
He found the random things in the back of the base and almost died to them. But he does see it is going to be an Acantor. He won't see it, but if Neblime just like waltzes into his base with Ahmed,
I think that might be what he's going to do.
Surround it,
as
soon as it comes out, right? Like so, there's an embassy coming. He is going for the long route in this.
Well, another thing that you got to watch out for here is that there's the one pylon powering the Ardent Authority. Seconds away from the Acantor finishing. I think it will be fine, but, it technically doesn't have to be a pullback. Neblime can maybe try to dance around it. The Acantor is done. Launching its first salvo. The Cleric will accept that with open arms.
He's going to try to surround it.
There's no more
there avoiding the shot, but
there's no more armor rend here. Yeah, so that's just gonna end up going the wrong way.
That one shot, just like if that Mason was stuck on a piece of geometry down in the bottom right there, just spinning for a moment, did a full circuit around it. Yeah, that one shot gutting like half of his army was just it. You could just feel his balls just explode at that point. It was all over. So
Atlas coming though.
Probably going to be just, going to tier 2. I probably still expect him to go Starport. Why not? Well, Sundogs will just avoid the whole Cantor problem. They'll give him sniping power.
Ooh, the NCL actually saw the Stargate and the Ardent Authority queue as well. Remember, when you detect units in this project, you can actually see what's queued up. So it lets you actually see, not just that a structure is making something, like you can see with the overlays, but that there's a specific unit there and what the progress is. That's definitely useful.
This Cantor drop can easily hit that bottom base. It can hit that ledge there very easily. There's nothing over there. I can go for the main. The main is completely open. There's no anti-air there whatsoever. That's where he's going this time. There's just the one out in the open. He can just ignore that fly inside of it and call it a day.
Well, the Ansel's actually going to detect the Envoy as well. And when you select transports with detection, you can also see what's inside them. So yeah. I feel like...
I don't know if Neblime saw that, though, because he's been more focused about the Draconins that are offering their lives to the Goliath that's in that. So
more Watchdogs have been added, though, so I think he's more than aware. Starpad
the one Watchdog finished. Now it's a lot more dangerous to try to burst this down.
Oh, no. He could have gotten it unloaded, but he didn't. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, he could have definitely done it before when that one was being built.
Yeah.
But he waited too long, and so he didn't even know about that timing window, of course. But yeah, that's a real nut buster. There's like 18 workers on this ridge in Neblime's base. He wants gas. He wants gas now. He will have it.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. Well, he's adding starports. He's definitely going to be at a tech advantage. Only now is 3 Crow expanding. This is around the time that Neblime normally thinks of his third base, maybe sometime sooner than this even.
Never made any positrons. He's got a shoe, and that's about it out of there.
A Cantor frontlining over here.
He can get some damage in on this army, though. Yeah. Ahmed takes the L for the team, and he charges forward into the awaiting arms of the Sentinel and everything else. It's not really any pressure here at all. I mean, even with a second encounter, there's not much. Handseal's just chilling out in his base.
Yeah, seeing what's up.
If he moves it up, he's going to spot the Exemplar. And I have a feeling it's going to be straight to Sundogs. And there is, like, no way that...
Yeah.
He hasn't built his customary... I can English sometimes. Engrams or anything like that, so there isn't like real AoE threat in his base to deal with him either. He is getting a witness, but it's Exemplar, a Cantor, so Sundogs will just kind of like exist. And I honestly feel like that when you're up against Neblime like this, where he's already said you just build starports first, and that's just what he does.
Yes.
Like he said that a while ago when I was talking to him, that you just expect to see starport out of him. I think that most Terran are going to be going starports for a while. I personally like to go fast Seraphs because they're absolutely busted as all hell. But, I mean, you can just build Sundogs. They're very decent units. They're good at dealing with Protoss in particular very well. Protoss have a lot of AoE, but unless they're like spamming idols or something, or architects at this stage in the game, which is not super common, they can deal with a lot of these things. They're good against Subtectons.
Oh, there's a drop here, though.
Units. Yep, there is a drop coming.
5 Hurricanes in there.
He just wants these pylons because he knows that's all that's powering them.
Yes. Well, that's going to stop any additional units popping out here as soon as that pylon goes down, even as the NCO blocking the Zealots doing any damage.
Given that there is an NCO there and a Cleric, there is actually no military that can deal with this at the moment.
No, he's just got the
Authority is unpowered. Yes. Like, he has to pull back his Exemplar across the map. And I don't know if he actually knows that they're up yet, or if he saw them when they were out in the front. I don't think so. They have to go all the way across, and he's actually going to lose the Ardent Authority. He's already lost the Stargate. This is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the sustain plus shielding, from the Cleric and Seal combo is absolutely going to be enough here. He should watch out for those Wardens.
He wanted the workers, but it's...
Yeah.
A little too late.
I feel like he honestly could have maybe done something to the Nexus, but it doesn't end up happening.
They're not attacking. They're trapped on the workers.
Yeah, they're hold positioning.
Oh, it's a disaster.
Absolutely bot.
He might have actually been able to get that Nexus down, or at least gotten it very low. And then sent in another drop later on. Oh, but...
Well, he has 4 Sun
Dogs are out.
Here comes the liftoff, seeing what he can do. There's only the Acantors, one of which is very low from dealing with Sentinel's fire earlier. And a Acantor shot goes haywire, targeting a Ministry, and then, you know, you trade the Sundogs for the Acantors. That's going to be fine, I suppose. He obviously has triple starport production.
Especially when your opponent can't make anymore, and for the time being. Look how much money 3 Crow has. His soul is broken. He may not even have realized that he lost. I mean, he surely knows he lost everything there, but he's being very relaxed about replacing. I think he's just thinking about leaving.
Well, he's looking at through the building list right now. This is what I was talking about when he doesn't have a game plan. He's like, well, I have a lot of money. I guess I'll just queue up some more units from my gateways because surely my opponent is on the way. But he was clearly looking through the building list and thinking, what can I build? What's actually going to be useful here? This is where you kind of just have to know reflexively. I know Protoss has a lot of stuff they can make, but you got to be able to just say, I'm going to pull the trigger. I got all this money. A decision made like 2 minutes, 3 minutes earlier than the correct one is still going to be better because at least I'll have something. And he's still just looking. He's down to 0 APM looking through the command card just to see what he can make. You know, this is a really rough position for him.
I think dropping like... If you don't know what to do, just drop like 4 and now he's going Stargates. I was gonna say drop like 4 Grand Libraries, just to have Amaranth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Atreus's, because Atreus's can help deal a little bit with the Sundogs. They're not super valuable units. Like if you went for Ancestral Archives, you're already countered by Sundogs. If you went Argosy, you can deal with the Sundogs, but you need Mass Empyreans. By the time you get Mass Empyreans, you're already at disadvantage. A more immediate solution is to go for Atreus's that aren't super amazing against Terran, but the Terran's going largely air at this point, so
yeah, the big drop is coming.
Help deal a little bit, right?
He's got
but
3
either
Trojans
way,
over
nothing's
here.
Gonna finish.
Yeah. Exemplar gets sniped out by the Sundogs. There's no splash damage over here. A bunch of Hurricanes unloaded from those Trojans. We got a Mason in there too, just to tickle. Maybe study the architecture of the Protoss. Some Wardens are finishing, but obviously the Sundogs can deal with those relatively easily. He even had another Trojan in the bottom right there, so he wasn't even really attacking with his full power.
Yep.
So yeah, just as the Stargates finish, there's not really any resources to go around, and he has hardly any military units left, as a matter of fact. Just the Zealots.
Yeah, he took so long to build those structures that they finished just in time to be unpowered.
Oh, the Sentinel drags in the Zealots at least. GG is called, and 3 Crow will drop the first map. Again, we kind of predicted that sort of thing. Neblime taking the game. That's a situation where we kind of have
that's a rough game by the metrics of the last series. It felt much more competitive than
right. Yeah, like that's why I said, you know, on paper this should have been the least competitive, but maybe 3 Crow can make it different. We go on to Sideshow, which is the map selected by 3 Crow to get us into the next one. And again, I just want to highlight here, right? Like we're talking about a player in Neblime who really likes these macro games, and a player in 3 Crow who just, to put it nicely, doesn't really know when it's over. So he stays in games that he has no chances of winning in just because, you know, I'm not sure what he's doing exactly, but maybe it's because it's a tournament. He wants to really make sure, absolutely no way I can win this, and then he'll GG. But we're going on to Sideshow. We're going on to map 2. I think about this situation as where 3 Crow needs to, you know, put on a better face. In the quarterfinals matchup, he definitely did better against Neblime. Put on a better showing. Even on this very map, he did pretty well. So, you know, we want to see if he can replicate that going into this one.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely felt like a very rough game for him where, he brought the Acantors, but he wasn't able to break the wall. So he was like, well, I'll make Exemplar. But Exemplar, I feel like they historically just don't do that well against Terran. And especially when the Terran already has watchdogs everywhere because of the failed Acantor stuff. It's just like it's an uphill battle to put pressure on.
Right.
And then the Sundogs appear, and it's like, okay, I just lost a whole bunch of shit to a Huracan drop that really had no right doing as much damage as it did.
Yep.
Especially since he had invested resources into defenses. It's just they weren't in positions that they could threaten that drop, and well, that whole thing was just a disaster.
Yeah, it's like you think about Neblime. Neblime's going to drop me. I'm going to put defenses in my mineral line. Well, he can drop more than that one thing, and so your other SimCity has to be called into question, and also you have to see if you can just preemptively stop the drops by positioning units in strategic locations. You can't just cover everything with wardens. It's not going to be cost efficient. It's going to slow you down. And I just want to see if 3 Crow can, make it even with the workers. We're going into Sideshow. We are going to see what happens in the second match.
I mean, if that money float had been placed into wardens, he would have been better off. Anyways.
Funnily enough,
like at least it would have gone into something. Yeah. It might have actually stopped a lot of the damage that went down. So, oh look,
we have the double yellow once again.
Piss yellow again.
Neblime in the top left. Bless. 3 Crow in the bottom right. Terran versus Protoss. Last time around, Neblime made a meal out of this particular map. And it definitely didn't look super pretty for him. He took a very long time to defeat 3 Crow despite being ahead in bases. 3 Crow actually was able to continuously target that third base location where Neblime's defenses were a little bit underwhelming. This time around, though, he's going to dispatch a worker kind of early. Not as early as you would think if his intent was to use that mystery meat cheese. The same thing he tried to do the last time around, you can do with only 2 pylons over here. And you can put down double Warden if you have the extra money. But I'm not so sure that 3 Crow is going to be able to do that. He's going to drop a gateway, so he's going to wait a little bit. Obviously, you need 150 minerals in order to make this happen normally.
Yeah, I don't. I think he might realize that it's a little hard to cheese him. Also, if his worker just gets attached to mine, it kind of defeats the whole thing. And that's not currently happening, but if he gets into that position, I mean...
Yeah. He's just going to go ahead and take it back. Yeah, he's
2 workers on either pylon, you can still deal with it, especially whenever it comes out.
Because there's no build space to put a pylon down if you put 2 wardens down. If you put 1 warden down, then you don't really have enough firepower to do too much anyway. So it kind of is a bad situation. I think he saw the stockade progress and said, if I was even thinking about the warden rush, I came a little too late. Yeah. So it's going to be 2 gate for him instead. Just a quick clarification, because this has happened a few times. Specifically on this map, for some reason, we do have double yellow, but the players were not both yellow. They were probably red and blue. Yeah. So for whatever reason, the colors are just giga-pranked, and I'll have to look into fixing that later.
He was mining gas just to get the Hierophant out, and then switched off the Ridge.
Yeah, now just...
So he really wanted the fast Hierophant,
yeah.
Which is... an interesting choice, I suppose.
It's okay versus Bio because they don't really have high HP pools. The Hierophant can actually do pretty good DPS and then kite backwards and use the fact that it's very, very nimble. The question is, are you going to back it up with enough Dracodons to make a significant difference?
I don't think it's very good offensively, though, because if they just build a stockade, it can slow it down, but it doesn't do really any damage to it.
Yeah.
And you've only got a small number of units. It's like the damage to actually kill the stockade is just not there.
Well, the other thing, too, is that with
the anchor will just hold them forever.
Yeah, the anchor's coming online. He would need a healthy number of either Legionnaires, which he is making, or Dracodons, which he is not making. And the problem with Legionnaires is that there exists a counter in the form of the Hurakan. Ahmed is on the way. There's, in fact, 2 of them, one of which is in that anchor. Make it 2. It's a diverse anchor. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, it's... Ahmed, I think you can kind of try to deal with him using Legionnaires, but you have to pull his attention onto another target.
Yeah.
The Hierophant can be useful for that, to try to single them out, but it requires quite a high-level control to do that, and I just don't really see it happening. I mean, it seems to be that is going to be his plan, but, if all Neblime does is just spam Hurakans at this point, it just turns into an absolute nightmare to deal with. That said, it's only a single stockade still. He's actually going for the star pad. I don't know. It's kind of late for mass raids. He's not making enough gas for it.
Yeah. This is just going to end up being a fast
fast expand.
He's dropping his ministry. I think he's going to go for a Trojan first. He could.
That is a chance for 3 Crow to get some aggro in here. And somehow seeing that Mason just filled him with so much rage.
Yes.
He has to march across. I don't know.
Well, maybe because the Hierophants end up getting scouted, and so he thinks to himself, I need to do something about that. That maybe there's something there. That's what he's thinking. A second anchor on the way just now goes down. Ministry slowly creating additional Mavericks. And the star pad is complete. So, yeah, I
feel like this is just going to be the same as the first game where he tries to bust this ramp and he gets busted instead.
Yeah, it's definitely
this time there isn't even the extra expansion for him to try to tickle instead. He's just...
Right.
I don't know. He's not really in a very advantageous state here. Like, this is going to be quite hard. He's going to try to force his way inside, but...
Yeah, as soon as the Hurricanes start lighting them up. Yeah.
This is what I mean. There's not enough damage. Like, whatever target he goes for at this point, he's not going to do enough damage. There's just not enough damage there.
Yeah.
Trying to force his way into a Terran that continually does the same thing. This is why I didn't try to do this against Neblime. This is why I went just like cheese. I mean, yes, Cyprians were a lot stronger back then, but it's like early on, Protoss has to really work miracles to break Terran being super turtly, and Neblime likes to be very turtly early on, except in the cases where he goes some Wraith spam. But we aren't really seeing him do that against the since the changes, and I feel like when you scout him early on, and he's not like harvesting all the gas in the world, he's probably not doing that.
Yeah.
So you have to just kind of like foresee that this is going to happen the exact same way, except this was even worse than the last time. At least the last time he got some kills on, I'm not sure he killed anything here at all. There was a Maverick that was very low, and the rest of his units just got stuck. All the Masons were there, but he didn't have the damage to kill them. So now Neblime's going to go aggro, and he's got his little scout there that just sees everything you're doing, but he actually pulled all of his units back. He decided not to.
Well, he sees the Ardent Authority almost done. I think he's worried about a repeat of what happened last time, but this time he had a little bit more tempo. He is adding triple stockade overall and Hurricanes with a Trojan. Positron. It will be the same play as before, and the fact that it's a Positron means that maybe 3 Crow can have a little bit more of a likelihood of riposting this assault, but honestly, Mesk, I think this is going to be like the last game, but a little bit faster from Neblime.
I like Positrons better than Acaneras in this matchup in general because it's hard to make Acaneras work against Terran when they can just do what Neblime did in the first game. Yeah. He can just sit back behind the ledges and you can put pressure on them, but I mean, you saw Shambler tried to do that against me in those matches too. It's like, it's actually hard to break the Terran because they can just lift over and over and over and waste your time. And the more time you have these Acantors that are doing actually nothing of any real value and allow the Terran to get into tier 2 and build whatever they want, the more it punishes you directly because it's such a huge investment to do that. But the Positron is a relatively cheap unit, is quite fast to move around, and is just a better general combat unit and more flexible.
Yeah.
So you don't know. You also, it's not slave to the Envoy if you want to do anything like drops with it. I also feel like that he thought, well, Neblime already prepared ahead for the Envoy anyways, and that didn't work out, so it's better just to get a general combat unit anyways.
Well, the other thing, too, is that at this point we are still seeing 3 Crow be very far behind when it comes to actual, you know, worker counts. As a result, resources. The Nexus is going down. There is a drop ready on the right-hand side of the map, and the NCL is bruised a little bit from the Positron and the Wardens.
He's making sure that nothing's being built in the main there, and he's waiting. Yeah. He wants to pull the army out with the Ant Seal, I think. Because if the army is inside, then it's a lot harder. And he's hoping to pull them to chase him. He's not giving into the bait yet. So he's going to take a different route here.
Well, this is at the same time as actually there is an attack move out to the other side of the map. So funnily enough, your Neblime was successful.
He just missed his opportunity, right?
Yeah. Well, we have an Atlas on the way here in the main. It's about halfway.
He might even end up running into these units if he's not careful if he goes back. But no, he actually pulls back all the way to home because he wasn't able to get the units to move out, even though they did, and he doesn't even realize it.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Second Ardent Authority just massing Positrons at the moment. 3 Crows felt the lash of the spanking and doesn't want to repeat of that. But, you know, if it goes into Sundogs again and he has a massive Positrons, he can actually riposte that quite favorably. Actually attacking the Terran is still difficult, especially if they still have Sundogs up. So,
well, we have a lot of Cyprians being massed up here as well. The Antseal being repaired. A second Trojan is out. We have a Fulcrum coming to presumably end up adding a Palladium for Madrigals. We didn't end up seeing those at all in the last tournament, or the last match, rather. One of the things I want to point out here, though, is that Neblime, I've been a little critical of this particular play, where Neblime will make his Atlas. His Atlas finishes around 815, 820, 830, something like that. And Neblime then adds on production. And rather than use the production that he's adding on for anything immediately, he adds on the add-ons for them. And this equates to like a 2-3 minute window where he's producing nothing but maybe some tier 1 bio. If 3 Crow is in a better economic position or had a stronger military and decided to move out, even in this particular game state, you could absolutely see 3 Crow just ripping Neblime's face off because he has more powerful units. He's actually been leveraging some of the Vespene that he's invested into his tech and stuff. And here we have Neblime. You know, if he ends up adding a Palladium to both of these Fulcrums and adding a star, you know, rotary to the Starport or whatever for Sundogs, it's just going to be a kind of a repeat of that kind of playstyle. This is kind of a blueprint for how you defeat Neblime. You just wait for him to get to tier 2, and then you attack, because he's not actually going to use it for anything until his structures and add-ons finish.
Yeah. It's also the case, though, that he knows his opponent's being really passive. He does have eyes on there, and he's going to put in some drop pressure in the meantime. So the window is not so large that I think a lot of our players can actually really heavily punish that, unless they're already in a strong position, and then he might not opt to do that. The fact that he's going Palladiums here in general is a marketed difference, because he's actually building tanks and not Madrigals. And that's just to be defensively minded against the inevitable Protoss attack. So... well, either way, I think he's fairly safe.
Yeah, it is commencing.
He's going to keep occupied. He's just going to focus on the buildings, which the Anseal escapes yet again. One goes down.
Yeah, the other one is going to stay alive, but that is still a pretty grievous loss. One of the positrons doesn't end up getting to finish. Scribe will take over the third, except there's a Maverick here to attack it. So that is actually not going to be long for this world.
So, I mean, Neblime's just very, very, very slowly turtling up here. Definitely an opportunity that he could attack if he had more dedicated. I mean, if he hadn't lost his first attack force and had that plus this attack force and then made like a very strong push at this stage, then there's definitely a lot more firepower in there. And, I mean, you could have delayed Neblime's tier 2 by having that at that point, because then, you know, you don't really want to build all this tech while there's like, you know, 30 Protoss units as opposed to 15, and a whole bunch of them are Hierophants that prevent you from even doing any hit and run on them. But that, it's just like, a lot of that just comes back to that first attack that was just an absolute disaster and gave Neblime the window. Because that first attack, being a disaster, was paired with this slow tech path that, you know, I mean, Positrons is still faster than a Cantor, so... but it's still like, there's just no actual threat from this at the moment, where if he attacks at the moment, he can deny this third. Oh, there was a pause, apparently, from Neblime. But, you know, there's still a lot of delay that these anchors can do. And he could have chosen just not to drop entirely at that point. So,
yeah,
in a hypothetical situation, I feel like Neblime still comes out on top, but there's definitely a tremendous weak point where that first attack just puts Three Crows so far behind, because he loses it all for nothing, trying to really force his way inside instead of being like, oh, there's anchors, I guess I'll just hold out. And he really feels like he has to make that early win, but Neblime is just not going to give him that.
Yeah.
And then he's going to continue to be greedy because he's been reinforced by that. Now, we do have the Argosy coming, which immediately gets scouted and might even get dropped again, which would be absolutely like soul destroying.
Yes.
He pulls all the shit back because he saw that. He's like, no, you're not getting this one.
No.
But he's a little ways off from getting that Solarian if that's what he's going for. He's even got the I feel like it's Solarians. He's got the engram coming out in his nat. He's bunkered down in there. He's not even wanting to secure any of these thirds at the moment. You know,
the second engram just went down in the main as well. Yeah, so
there isn't a pointed Sundog armament here, but that can be switched to at a moment's notice.
Well, he's got he actually has an Azazel out, as well as, of course, the second one coming from the starport. So, yeah, that's what his choice is. No Seraphs, but instead he's just going to try to reinforce the units that he has existing. He can dematrix the Trojans to keep them alive. He can dematrix the units that they drop.
Spinning.
He can make it spin. And yeah, so
he's looking for an early drop here. Now, this, I don't know. I mean, the Solarian's on the way. If this actually takes off, a 3-Crow can deflect this drop very handily. He can put himself back in the game off the back of this, because there's no desire to get Sundogs. Neblime just wants to drop this and put an end to it. But, I mean, that is a lot of Positrons. If they catch wind of this and move up there and are able to protect, there's an engram there. That is so much AoE that the bile would just melt even through all the defenses that they have. Because, I mean, there's only the one hand seal, and the defense matrix is not going to protect every unit. So, but that's not what's going to happen. He's just going to drop right on top of this all over the place.
And look at that, the engram isn't even going to get a single frag as a result of that. Some Hurricanes were wounded. All the Trojans end up escaping. And that's going to mean that he can redrop after the fact. Now, he hasn't focused his Hurricanes onto the Argosy. He is going to do that now, but it's a very, very durable structure, and there's only a handful of Hurricanes left over. So while they're going to get it to maybe around half HP, I don't think that it's going to be enough. Of course, the Solarian will finish, and that'll be the Architect.
Oh, he even kills the last Azazel.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was a pretty good setup for Neblime, but he didn't focus down the Argosy, and he killed, like, a handful of scribes, and then the engram and like a warden or something like that, and maybe a couple of units. Well, that actually really did not go that well for neblime in the long run.
Yeah, I think he maybe was getting a little too
Now he
creative.
has to make the switch to Sundogs, so now, that takes some momentum out. But the problem for 3 Crow is that he's still only on 2 bases, and neblime's just going to make a 4th there.
Yep, taking the 9 o'clock position. He's actually going to be loading up a lot of bio and phalanxes that he made, since he might as well do something with them. He's going to go ahead and dispatch another drop. That's just going to try to keep the army divided, or 3 Crow can keep his army at home, and neblime will win slowly.
Yeah, so he's got a Seraph out. This could be using to proxy nuke while he's attacking.
Yeah.
Destroy some of those defenses, and then natural split the army up. 3 Crow is making a terrible mistake here, which is to move out at this point. I don't think he has the pressure in Solarians yet to do that. I think he knows that there's a clock on the Sundogs, however, and feels like, well, I have to do something. But
he's keeping the Solarians at home, but
just wants to drop.
Yeah, I don't know how fast they're going to be able to do anything over here. Here comes the unload. A Phalanx is out as well. The Wardens are going to be the main target. Some of these Trojans didn't actually have too many Hurricanes in them. Now remember, the Argosy does only have 600 shields. It can be focused down now. But I think, unfortunately, for
he doesn't have enough Ahmed. The fact that those 2 Wardens were alive, they've got 3 kills apiece. That's a good chunk of his attack force.
Yeah, so absolutely didn't get finished off. And,
neblime is in a little bit of a dangerous spot. He wants to make sure that these Solarians don't reach such a point that he can't deal with them with Sundogs anymore. He has only the 3 starports able to make them, and they're not all active right now. So while he has a large army, the vast majority of it is anti-ground. And Ahmed will actually have a very hard time approaching what amounts to 13 positrons. Ahmed does not want to face 13 positrons out in the open. He wants the positrons to be occupied on something else, or in this case, he just wants to drop it, and it looks like he might actually be going for the expansion at this point. I don't know. His Trojans might have spotted the army sitting over there.
Yeah, they attacked one of the Trojans, so the only 3 of them made it out instead of all 4. So he definitely is aware that that's where the position was. There's a Gorgon over here as well as the double Seraph. Interesting, as well as an Artisan that was forgotten about to try to set up a base at 3 o'clock. Looks like
he really went. It has a kill on it. He got the Maverick with it, but as a result, the Gorgons are going to
absolutely blasted. Well, the 3 Crow army is down there. At
over there.
Yeah, that's an interesting location.
It's risky. I mean, your opponent has shown that he just wants to drop and just keep dropping and just drop and drop and drop.
Well, his reaction is to build 2 matrices and 4 Wardens. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be hard to drop that, I think.
Yeah, well, I feel like 3 Crow still wants to keep his army more on his side of the map and then eventually choke out the map using the Solarians and a portion of his army. Like, moving over here opens up his base to what it basically would just be an all-in.
Well, a couple of Sentinels are being added to this base. If they end up getting erected here before the army pulls the trigger, I mean, even these Phalanxes, they can just drop into, siege mode and start making some, mockery of this ground force. One of the Sentinels is, in fact, done. Another one will be interrupted by the salvo of missiles. The Solarians are also with this army, so here is where the rubber meets the road. Can 3 Crow get on to a sort of snowball position?
Terrible ramp. Here comes the Ahmed drop.
Okay.
He's going to drop on the army.
There we go.
Behind the army.
He tries to, but hey, look, during this time, the Sundogs are being picked off by the Solarians, so maybe the ground army does get nuked. Waiting for the Irradiates, a great set of Irradiates, as well as wounding the army. Now, the armor doesn't really affect Sundogs because they have 5 armor pen anyway. So, on this update, Solarians only have 5 armor as opposed to 6 on pre-release. Remember that.
The Positron is 10 kills. So many Ahmeds have died, even though he had such a great engage. And the Solarians, one of them died, but 2 of them escaped.
And a bunch of Ahmeds have decided to storm off towards what would be the 3rd base if 3 Crow ever decided to make it.
Yeah.
He's got a 1 watchdog on the top right as well.
Like, where's your bases? You took all my units out. Yeah. Where's your bases at? But there are none.
Well, we have a synthetic Synod coming. I really think that would be for Empresses. Maybe Clarions to try to keep the Stewards up a lot more, since they do that shield splitting, but
Empresses wouldn't actually be too bad if he had a larger air force. The problem when you lose the Solarians and the Terran keeps pumping Sundogs is you just don't have that many targets to keep them occupied, and they're just going to erase everything. So if you make a high-value unit like an Empress, he can't afford just to single that out over the Solarians at first.
Well, keep in mind, too, that there are still 5 Trojans. I think all of them ended up surviving that engagement. So at this stage, right, like the Solarians have withdrawn all the way to the base. We've got 3 of them and an Empyrean. A second Empyrean is coming from that Argosy. Yeah. And, okay, yeah, 3 Crow, you're kind of turtled up. We don't have any anvils yet, so Neblime not too interested in
The thing is, though, he's not that well turtled up. His main is mined out.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's going to get harder and harder and harder just to keep the one Argosy going. Yeah. With a synthetic synod and anything else he wants to build. He's lost all the positrons, which really was the most powerful thing he had. That was really what he needed to form the backbone of any defense or move out. Now that he's lost those, there's not really a lot of protection for the Solarian other than his defenses, which, I mean, he has the 1 engram, which has a single kill, so it's been scouted. And the other stuff like that's all deeply nestled in his base. It is going to be Empresses. This would be a very scary army if he had an extra base behind it.
Yeah, and that's the problem. His Artisan got sniped.
This is the thing, though. Look at his resources. Even though he's only on 2 bases and when's mined out, he's still floating a lot of minerals. So there's a lot of potential that's not being actuated at the moment.
Another thing to point out is that right now he's actually not fully saturated on his Vespene. Both of his ridges are at 2 workers out of 3, and the Geyser in his naturals at 2 workers out of 3. He hasn't capped any of them. He hasn't really done much of anything with that.
This is definitely where you wanted to pop a cap, probably while you're attacking, so that you have a little bit of backbone to go off of when you're refueling. Yeah. And
he's building a pylon with the Artisan at that base there. The would-be third, because there's some Ahmeds that are stopping him from actually taking it normally. So he's going to have to build some defenses
to even murder them with the Solarians.
Yeah. But he's just worried as soon as he moves out, there's going to be another death drop, and there is one fomenting at around 6 o'clock, along with a bunch of Seraphs for Irradiate and such. Sundogs aren't with this army. Oh, no, there's 1 and a Gorgon. So there's a small force. It's not all that Neblime has as he takes 12 o'clock. He's more than happy to just sort of sit here and hang out, and yeah,
okay. He canceled them, but, he just ignored them.
Yeah. Here comes the drop, some D-Matrixes onto the Trojans. They're going to drop right on top of the Synthetic Synod. There is one Empress with this army.
Oh, they all flew into it.
Oh, boy. Yeah, flying into the Irradiate.
Goes down.
The other one is going to try to evacuate.
There's not really any anti-air damage here, so the Irradiate's not really that big. And the army, he flew right into the army that was waiting there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a complementary Irradiate, but again, it's not really an issue for him because nothing is dealing damage. So he just ignores it.
Yeah,
that did not go too well.
I think at this stage, if you're Neblime, you're kind of playing with your food a bit. Your Daedalus just finished in your main, and what are you going to use it for? I mean, if you really want to crush his spirits, just start spamming diadems. But he does have 13
I think that Magnetars are a very good pick at this point.
Sure, yeah.
Magnetar, Hippogriff, I think that Mass Centaur would also be great.
Sure, yeah. Finally, 3 Crow will be allowed to take a third.
like this third that that the Ramses is sitting at, that's a great place to stick the diadem. Yeah. And then you force him out into your Irradiate, and then you can kill him.
There's one nanite assembly being added to the main. Threat, right, yeah.
The second you bring him to where you want to fight, then you can build a kill box and deal with it.
You know what I still want to see is the Pythians pick up anchors and drop them in somebody's base. You can make the Pythian out of the nanite assembly. I hope that Neblime does it. He's not even harvesting Vespene from his 12 o'clock position here. It looks like he just now realized.
He hasn't capped anything. He capped his Nat.
Yeah.
And the third, but he never capped his main and the 4th or 5th. So he's low on gas right now, which is actually going to be an issue because he is trying to build the nanite assembly right next to this Mason that's trapped behind a watchdog he could just lift off.
Yeah, well.
I don't know. It isn't a very directed tier 3 quite yet because he's a little low on build space. There's an Iron Foundry coming out by the 3rd, but only one nanite assembly at the moment. Oh, no, there's 2 more in his Nat. Okay.
Yeah, and 3 Crow is also very slowly deciding to build a lot of defenses with the 1 Artisan, pretending it's a hero unit, adding...
These don't build faster from the Artisan anymore, do they?
No. The benefit is that they fly, so you can take pocket bases and stuff. Now, there's a move out from the air army on the mid-left, going to be coming down towards the 6 o'clock Ahmed.
So many Ahmeds.
Yes, there's Ahmeds all over the place. Some Ramses lying around as well. Just in key locations, right? Keeping watch on your opponent. Very important in this particular game.
There's not really a lot of sieging power in this. He can dive face first in these defenses, which are going to be complete with a Crucible. The air army can just swoop in after, and then Neblime can actually just lose everything.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the story of why he's been sort of struggling to deal damage to begin with. Is he did snipe the structures with Ahmed, but Ahmed dies for it, and it's yeah, you set 3 Crow behind, but you aren't actually dealing fatal damage at that point. It is going to be Mass Centaur, which are, when he gets enough of them, the AoE damage is going to be quite difficult to deal with. But in small numbers, they definitely will easily get picked off by the Solarians. And God help you if they start getting raised by the Empresses.
Well, another thing to point out here, though, is that in order to harvest from this base, 3 Crow had to spend over, I think it's like 3,000 minerals and something like 300, 400 gas, just so he could start mining it and feel secure about it. So that kind of shows you the situation that he's been put in. And there is some gas capping happening, a reservoir happening in the top right, and a dog barking in the background.
Dog.
That's the watchdog or the sun dog? I'm not sure which.
It's a dog.
It's a dog.
The dog.
A crow dog.
Yep. So there is a number of center being built. He does have a future station. I don't think he's done anything with it yet, but he can look to the future. He's just kind of looking around the map. You know, these bases here, 3 Crow could just kind of like creep towards them. Both players have a lot of minerals at this point, which is not so good for 3 Crow when he really needs it. He could build like a Crucible or another Argosy or Synthetic Synod eventually, if he would just cap his gas.
Well, it's going to be made a little bit easier in the next update, as it no longer costs Vespene for the Protoss to cap their gas. It's just 400 minerals. We'll see if that makes them imba or not. The fleet is moving out over towards the 3 o'clock base to meet the 1 Ramses. If they decide to get antsy and move out, well, then neblime can pick his targets. He's got Centaurs, very fast destroyers. He's going to start engaging the army. Oh, the Empyreans can stack up a lot of damage.
Into the Empyreans.
Yeah, this is potentially quite dangerous. They're down to below a control group. Where are the Seraphs? Where are the Centaurs? They're coming in now. Some prospective D-matrixes as some irradiates get launched. And yeah, at this point, I think the Solarians have all been melted by the Ramses, funnily enough. As soon as you rend the armor on the Seraph, they can start getting affected by kinetic pen.
But the Empresses are starting to cap some of these targets as they go down there.
Yeah.
Trying to focus on those Seraphs. There is the mind-controlled Centaur. It's shooting the Ramses.
Yeah.
And now the Ramses are getting them.
They're getting.
That's what I mean. He ignored the Empresses, and they're the ones biting him in the ass at the moment because it added a lot of firepower.
Oh, a Penumbra has arrived.
Penumbra is going to die terribly. There is a Magnetar out in the middle, just one at the moment, along with a Diadem.
I can't wait for the 1 Yamato. You said it yourself, Mesk. You wanted to see that.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to see it used against Zerg. 1 Yamato is not going to stop this, though. This is actually has the potential to get out of control if neblime.
Oh, a lot of the watchdogs are firing off here.
He's losing units just all over here, but he's going to potentially try to pick off the Solarian. He's got 1 Magnetar. He is pulling the other one out.
Oh, here we go. Double Magnetar.
3 Crow's dealt with this. He knows. He knows how to deal with these.
Oh, here's the Diadem shot firing off from somewhere down south because at some point the base in the middle was taken. Hey, you stole a Yamato!
Yamato!
He stole the Yamato and shot it off at him. Dude, 3 Crow could actually take this if he's not careful, man.
I'm telling you, you gotta be really careful about Empresses. If they get out of control, you just enter the situation. Now, the defenses have done a lot of damage, and there's still a lot of production behind the Neblime at this point. And 3 Crow doesn't have the production to hold this. Plus, that middle is still... It's actually shooting at his ground units as they pass by, so it was causing him some headaches here.
Absolutely. But well, he takes out the future station, so there's no more Penumbra.
If he was expanding and building behind this, he's got 5,000 minerals, 750 gas.
Oh, there's
all of his attention is split focused on
this. Because his third is under attack by the Magnetars. One of them is just flying into death like a goofball. But there's Magnetars, there's Diadems, there's Yamatos. He's being sieged, and he tries to go back in towards his opponent's third. There was a Penumbra over here. It's going to come on forward. Here's the double Yamato. They end up whittling down a lot of the Empyreans, and one more shot will do it, but looks like it might be allowed to escape. Oh, there you go. It ends up getting popped by the... Yeah, that's by the Penumbra. Even more action happening on the 3 Crow third. The third Crow.
He just Yamato'd nothing.
Yeah, I saw that. Now trying to take the 3 o'clock position. I mean, it's in your name, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. He's trying to regroup with the rest of his army, but he's only got the 2 Empresses and the 2 Empyreans. He hasn't remaxed on Solarians, which would be great for dealing with Magnetars and any other high armor target. Instead, he's just setting Achmed on fire with other Achmed, thanks to his Empresses. But here comes some more Magnetars.
Oh, an effort was made.
Yeah. Zoning.
An effort was made a second time.
Well, he's got double diadem now over here, so this is quite spooky. And yeah, all the workers are just going to end up dying. Some shamans are here to offer heals.
Yeah, they'll need it seeing as the penumbra is splashing now. Oh, they're retreating now. Oh, dear. Oh, it's disgusting.
Hey, the Nexus is still alive. Hey, guys, what are you doing? What are you goobers doing? There we go.
Nope.
No, actually, it goes after the warden. Yeah, so, I mean, this is just like the state of affairs. I feel like 3Crow had a scary push going, but wasn't able to reinforce. He didn't rally his units ahead. They are fairly slow-moving air units. And, you know, he also...
wants this middle. He has to deal with it, but he's getting surrounded by Yamato here, and this is...
Yeah.
He got one of the Empresses.
Another shot. Ooh, like 4 units ended up getting immobilized by that and absolutely annihilated. No more Yamatos are coming. It's just going to be a straight-up fight. But there's Penumbras. And in fact, there's kind of an anti-synergy here where they're pulling them into melee like splash range for the Penumbra to deal friendly splash, but there's just too much damage over here, and there's not really any other units. He made an analog, but it's a little late for that. He wanted to try to reflect the diadem shot. Honestly, analog Clarion would have been really, really good versus the comp that neblime has. I think the Magnetar shot would have hit the Magnetar and just pierced everything and pulled it all towards the analog into a conflagration of death, but doesn't end up happening. Instead, these Wardens are going to get bopped on the bottom. That's going to free up a lot of room for the air fights to happen on Neblime's turns. There goes the Empress. If it dies, then you don't get the benefit of its passive. And, of course, there's the rest of the units for 3Crow. He's now down to just 7 military units, which are gathered around his natural. He's not training a single thing. 5,000, almost 6,000 minerals. Some Yamatos coming out to deal with that synthetic cyanide. The diadems are now starting to shoot because they've been airlifted over. And they've landed at where the third was. GG called, the Ministry being taken where his Nexus used to be, because why not? And Neblime is going to take game 2.
He's even building a Ministry over there.
Yeah. He's even extending the replay. He wanted to kill the one Argosy. There you go.
He really just had to kill
Yeah, he didn't get it off earlier with the multiple drops that attempted to kill it, so that's going to be it for him.
Dear.
Well, our third match could be the final one as Neblime finds himself up 2-0 over 3Crow. This could be an 0-3, a clean sweep.
Yep. It's there's definitely a lot of danger behind the Empresses and stuff like that, but 3Crow needed to be expanding behind that.
Yes.
And he was taking one base, but it was kind of slow, and he needed to be reinforcing behind that and spending all those minerals. He could have like spammed Amaranth to, again, you know, just building like a whole bunch of production out, just try to have some snowball off of this rather than, yeah, he was really needlepoint focused on that army, which eventually got destroyed by Magnetar. So definitely a rough situation, but there was a little bit of window there for him to try to gain some momentum off of it, and it didn't happen. You kind of need a plan when that happens, right? Like when you break out like that.
Yeah.
You know your opponent has a ton of bases, defenses, and production. You need to have a plan for actually getting yourself back in, because you weren't going to win exclusively off of this. You did destroy his army, which is great. But you took a lot of damage in the process, and also a chunk of the units you had were zombies from the Empresses to begin with, so they weren't going to last forever. So then you needed something to pull off of that, and I felt like he didn't have a game plan that far ahead. And, you know, whereas Neblime just kind of did. He just, again, you know, it kind of felt like the Keen versus Mystery Meat game, where Neblime was kind of like on autopilot for it. A lot of these drops are super ineffectual, and I feel like someone like me could have punished him so heavily for that.
Yeah.
He lost so many drops and accomplished very, very little with them, and that's what led to that situation to begin with, that there was actually a push-out that was really dangerous. Even though the initial push-out didn't do that much, where he lost all the units to the mass Achmed drop, that still wasn't enough to actually seal the game because of how ineffectual Neblime's attacks actually were being.
Yeah.
There just wasn't enough heart and soul put into them at that point that he was actually even able to deny the Argosy at that point.
Well, we go on to Nitro Valley, selected by 3Crow. He seems to favor this map. We got to remember, of course, that this is the map that he took off of Neblime when he was down 2-0 prior. Neblime will spawn on the bottom left as the light olive Terran. Cross spawns, it's going to be 3Crow, the blue Protoss in the top right. And you know what? I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, the last time it was horizontal spawns, right? Bottom left versus bottom right. So this is a little bit of a different look. Obviously, Neblime knows that the last time he had his opponent on the ropes, it went to infinite velocity for a fourth match. And that's how Neblime clutched it out. And 3Crow said Terran OP, which was really funny. And okay, maybe this is the situation where 3Crow is going to try to go for the Argosy, like the fast Argosy. That seemed to, he had a winning composition there, just like you mentioned. He didn't really seem to have much of a game plan for how to contend with the middle. And admittedly, Neblime taking the middle of Sideshow is a bit of a bizarre one. I was really quite surprised by that. It was cool to see, but, that's the power of the diet.
It made sense from his perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Makes sense.
It's like, when you recognize that it's okay, I got to deal with this, but, I want to deal with this later. But then, if he had actually spun around and gone for the middle, he would have cut half of those Magnetars off. And he could have sniped them before they entered a really large number that at that point he lost all of his Solarians, so he couldn't really snipe them as easily. Because, Empyreans don't really seem to do that well against them, so...
Yeah, I think it's the fact that they get
in, would have helped.
The Empyreans have to go through whatever's on the front that is also an air unit. Their missiles don't go straight to their target if there's something blocking it. Whereas if you look at the Solarians, you can just right-click them and they can just shred through a bunch of stuff thanks to the Stewards. So I do think that the late-game air fights favor Protoss if they can have Solarians mixed in to really snipe those hostile capital ships. But you do have to watch out, do you have enough things to disrupt? Another thing that you could absolutely do is you could work in didacts, then your army is able to maybe take engagements a little bit easier because of the cloak, but also you can stasis any Magnetar that starts to channel because the stasis channel is much shorter than the Magnetar Yamato channel, right? So that's another thing that you could try to work in. He had the Argosy, he could have done it, but gas was his really big limiting factor. He's going to see if he can maybe do something a little bit different this time around, going for the Drakiden first, very standard, and Neblime is going to scout it. There wasn't a scout from 3Crow yet, so he's kind of in the dark as to what his opponent might be doing.
Yeah, he's not going for the proxy. It's a vast embassy.
Interesting.
Actually. I've seen him do this against me a couple of times. He would actually go for a fairly fast artisan, but usually it was off the heel of some defenses or something like that. So to see it super early, we did see some people, I think it was Dark and Fantasies, experiment a little bit with this.
3Crow actually did experiment with Fast Embassy, and that was when Biddy B beat him in a 3-2 series in the playoffs of Ascension 5. Yeah. And funnily enough, now he doesn't even know where his opponent is, so he has to scout with his Drakiden. Otherwise, he could maybe get some damage done under these Mavericks before the anchor, because Neblime decided to go for a Ministry first. This is another case where maybe if he scouts first, it's a bit different. But I think the Fast Embassy... 3Crow literally did an embassy first, and then he got proxy gated to death. So this time he does gateway first, and then goes into the embassy. And it's actually going to be a witness. Interesting.
That's peculiar.
Well,
now there's something brewing in his head. Now he's got some odd plan going on, and I don't think it's just because he hasn't scouted, and that's quite the investment. I think it's because he wants to do something cheesy.
Yeah, I wonder what he's planning. He's actually going to go ahead and end scout with the Drakiden, which means he's going to scout his opponent last. Absolutely slapped. Now, the one thing that the Fast Embassy can afford you, aside from extra workers, to try to keep pace with your opponent, is you can absolutely go for a Fast Envoy, and then maybe see if you can drop, Elevator a bunch of Drakidens in. That can be very problematic for Terrans, especially if they only have the one anchor. So, you could maybe see something like that. I would love to see something like that in this exact circumstance, actually. But for now, 3Crow is just going to be adding a Stargate. He's kind of getting one of every building right now. He's not, he's got the Gateway Lattice, Embassy, Stargate. The only thing he's missing at this point is, well, I don't know. As far as the first, early tier structures go, he's kind of got them all. Doesn't have an end
the days where he made the Cybernetics core, and it was like, oh, it's going to be Mass Legionnaire.
Yeah. Fulcrum coming as well as a star pad. Yeah, here comes the Ant Seal. It will detect the witness. I'm sure that Neblime will have noticed that. He's actually going to go ahead and try to follow it around, but he only has the Mavericks and the anchor, so is he really going to snipe it?
Well, if it flies over the anchor, he might actually...
Oh, dude, that's brutal. He even stimmed and then got back into the anchor. Such was his confidence. Well, that's 75 gas down the drain.
That was a disaster. That's it is just slap after slap that 3Crow has to endure here. Double Stargate, this will be all in. I thought it might have been Panoptis, but he can't afford Panoptis if he keeps spending his gas like that. He is trying to deny, if he does not deny the answer. Oh no!
Yeah, it's gonna make it in.
It's over. He's not gonna catch it now. Oh, unless it flies into him. Then I guess, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, well.
Neblime had a little bit of a brain fart there. He didn't want to go through the long way of the base. Well, he scouted the Stargates. He knows what it is.
He'll never suspect Auroras, though. It's going to be a Goliath, a second Fulcrum coming. Now, with enough Auroras, you can spam them out. Aurora, Vassal, Dracodon is actually a comp that can get you some success. The question is, does 3Crow have enough resources to sustain that? This is an all-in type of build because he's not really going to have enough money, assuming his macro is on point, to ever actually spend anything extra. He's not going to have anything in reserve, right? So as long as he keeps all of his structures blinking right now with Dracodon, Vassal, Aurora, like, this is something that can do some damage, and it can overwhelm Goliaths. But it's kind of like it's got a limited shelf life.
Well, there's a third Fulcrum coming. That is 3.
That is 3.
And it looks like Cleric Goliath will be Neblime's mainstay here. He is harvesting a fair bit of gas, but tier 2 is a way out for him.
We've got double Watchdog as well in the natural and nothing in the main. So he's kind of predicting the spot that 3Crow is likely to take, which is really unfortunate.
Scarcely misses the Vassal.
He does, yeah. He's going to go ahead and move over here and get shot.
Is this really going to kill 2 Watchdogs with a whole bunch of Masons repairing them? I'm not so sure.
No, what you would want is the Vassals to focus on the Masons and the Auroras to just position themselves on top of the Watchdog so their suicide kills all the Masons. But
do they do splash?
Yeah, the death explosion does when they die. So.
Oh, that could be stupid.
Yeah.
But it's a third Stargate. It's mass Auroras. This is different.
Yeah, this is very different. Well, 3Crow pulling out all the stops. You know what would be really good against mass Aurora-esque? Cyclops. But that's something that Neblime just refuses to build. He's going to add 3 Goliaths instead. I hope one day he plays a match and he thinks to himself, man, the only answer is Cyclops, but I can't win. And just GG's. Really conspicuous.
Well, he would rather die than scar his pride building Cyclops.
He had a comment that was a very loving comment. He said, I really admire all the work that you do. You put out all these casts. It's really impressive, but I will never build a Cyclops.
I mean, I can't. I don't think I've ever won a game off of building Cyclops.
Well, that's because you're not me. Here comes the fight. The Aurora's engaging before everything else. That's a classic 3Crow move. Ends up losing out a bunch of them. And I think, honestly, just based on this botched engagement, I mean, you're dealing with a really, really rough time here. The Clerics are going to sustain. The Auroras and Vassals are trying to find a good spot. They're starting to snipe down some of the Goliaths, but I think it's too little too late.
They're healing so much.
Yeah, that's a lot of dead Protoss, especially considering so much of that was expensive. He's adding 2 Panoptises, but I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I think that was
just... is already at a disadvantage against this in general.
Yes, yeah.
You would have needed to have had already a substantial advantage, but I think it's already too late.
It seems like it. Crossing over that cooled lava in the middle of the map, Neblime is just going to gun his way up here. Oh, you got some Dracodons there. Well, I got an Anseal. And soon to be followed by a bunch of Clerics. Oh, never mind, they're spinning. It's almost worse.
Be one Goliath down.
It's almost worse when you almost kill something than, like, getting it to half health and then it starts getting healed. You know what I mean? Like, that's actually kind of worse. There's a 1 Cyprian dealing a bunch of splash damage. Well, with this number of Panoptises, especially with the Goliaths not really focus firing, we could actually see 3Crow hold here.
Yep. 1 Panoptis goes down. But there's just so much tickling.
There is so much
Imagine
tickling.
if Clerics had mana. Now they're going to die, and it's over.
Yeah, that was a...
All right. He holds on by the skin of his balls, just barely, just with his teeth.
He is adding more Panoptises, a single land effect in production. And no ground army. He's going to try to take a natural now, but he's very, very behind economically speaking.
No, I want another lattice. Now Neblime is floating money. He's going to go for tier 2.
Yeah, it's later than we normally see from him, but this is a very heavy committal into triple Fulcrum Goliath production, adding just some Achmeds to the mix now. He's got 4 of them in a Trojan. So we kind of know what's happening
in again. It is relentless, the peeping.
Yeah, here comes another one.
He'll catch the move out here because there will be nothing home, and he will know somewhere. Maybe his Mason will encounter them first.
No, not quite.
He's looking. Where is your units at?
No, it doesn't see it. Doesn't see it. All right. Antiel in the top right is just going to hang out here. He sees, 2 more Stargates continuing to produce units. Second lattice is here. The Nexus was obviously delayed for that. Mason will arrive in the bottom right so that he can take another expansion versus a player who has predominantly built air units. I don't know if I appreciate corner bases in that situation. We'll see if 3 Crow wants to go ahead and try to snipe the worker making the Atlas. Here comes the land effect to disable the 1 Watchdog, but there's more over there. So now they're going to try to do it piecemeal, but unfortunately for 3 Crow, neblime doesn't actually attack in this game, he just defends. So all of his units are there. The disruption field was actually disabling his own units there for a moment, and the land effects will be, or the air units in general, will be reposted at the cost of 4 Watchdogs. Pretty minor cost, all things considered. Yep.
The Caterpillar of Mason's return.
Yeah, love to see that.
Continue munching on the leaves.
Okay,
now he's making Exemplar.
That'll be okay versus the drop that's going to be incoming to his base within the next minute or so.
And there's the double starport. It's a losing game for 3 Crow here. He's going to have to pull out some E-hand timing. His
Nexus only now finished. Like, this is really late at this point, right? So at least he has triple worker production queue. He can maybe do something. But the command center, is the ministry rather, is almost done in the bottom right. So here comes the NCL just to say hi and then bye.
That's how you do it, You see the Ancil, you annihilate it. That warms my heart. Too often has Neblime been able to fly Ancils through my base unmolested. You should feel the lash of the spanking.
Yeah, Neblime was really... He asked me when we were going to see the Tensender added, which is like the souped-up anchor. And of course he would, because he likes to turtle instead of playing the game. So he's, it's on point. Marching across with his Goliaths. He's not really felt very much pressure in this set. Have more Hurricanes being added over here. And yeah, this is another round where, we see the air focus out of 3 Crow. Feels like maybe he can surprise him. Maybe he can get a good engagement. But the Goliaths are enough to break down his door. The drop is enough to ruin everything he has at home. The air units need to be here. And they will actually spot out the bottom right base. But this should be a go signal, surely, for Neblime.
Oh, no, he's flying into the air units. He may not have even discovered them. He lifted off and flew into the corner.
That's weird. You got all these Masons here. I guess I'll just keep flying.
The vassals are chasing the Ancil across the map. I don't think he's realized where they went.
Oh, here come the
Goliaths. I'm not sure he even knows that his air units are chasing this ministry at the moment.
Yeah, there goes all the...
No, he was confused. Oh, it's a train thing. Didn't even get the Ancil in the end.
No, didn't get the ministry.
Now he realizes, wait a second. I can destroy that. What is this doing here?
Meanwhile, it's natural. It's Ahmed.
He doesn't need that. That doesn't build Panoptises for him. He doesn't need... Oh, the Engram's going to die.
The other Engram's also going to die.
Oh, no. Oh, it's going to finish. It's going to finish. It's finishing. It's finished. It's up.
But at what cost? No, Ahmed, don't stand in front of it. Oh, you did.
Oh, it's a travesty.
Well, here comes some more units charging forward, but he's already lost his Nexus to Ahmed's rage and fury. He may have killed the ministry, but he lost a Nexus in an exchange. This is not looking good. Not looking good at all.
Here's how 3 Crow can still win. First, he needs to make like 20 Solarians and Empresses again. And then, he needs to prevent Neblime from ever leaving his base. Destroy that third before he gets a chance to do anything at all. Never allow the Trojans to escape ever again. And give Ahmed a wedgie.
Oh, Hurricanes.
Yeah, the Ahmed and the Cleric went down to counter the Exemplar.
Yeah.
But they found no Exemplars.
Here come 4 Valkyries.
Okay. I mean, it's very brave. Stunning and brave. Valkyries, unfortunately, do not annihilate armored air units quite like they used to, so 3 Crow could have actually pursued those and probably sniped another one before the ground army invariably stepped on his balls, but...
Yeah, I think he's going to have to cancel his Nexus again, which is really going to be the closing moments of the match. Neblime has him on the ropes. It's looking like a 3-0, like we said. He doesn't even need his drops for this one. He doesn't need tier 3 for this one. It is destined. The engagement to decide the match here. Can he save his Nexus? Well, there's nothing to stop the Hurricanes from actually dealing damage, and the focus wasn't really on the Valkyrie, so a lot of splash damage went onto those Protoss air units. Meanwhile, the Goliaths are happy to just whittle the rest of them down, and there's only the one Exemplar, as one of them was already sniped. There goes the other. Warden's now going to be damaged. I don't think the Nexus was even canceled, so he really has no money. The Stargate's not blinking at all. And at this stage of the game, neblime looking likely to face Mystery Meat in Elimination 3. Crow.
That's 3. You'll get one last Goliath here, maybe.
Yeah, he got it.
Yeah, there you go.
One for the road. The Anseal with 3 HP just hanging out. Can't be killed. It's actually got 153 HP, believe it or not.
It's okay. Additional Goliaths to knock bid are en route, but you won't get a chance to see them.
And that is that. The conclusion of our casts today. Managed to close it out with neblime taking the match. It's pretty much what we expected, but the fact that that means that neblime moves on to face Mystery Meat, I'm really not expecting neblime to be able to do too much in that set in particular. You know what I mean? Like, Mystery Meat as Zerg has shown that he can be aggressive in the early stages, and really only in the mid game is where things fall apart. neblime, on the other hand, needs to be aggressive versus pretty much anything his opponent does. Maybe in a TVT, neblime can clutch it out, funnily enough, because of the way that he understands the tech, understands the limitations of the race. But I think any other matchup Mystery Meat rolls, Mystery Meat's going to roll neblime. That's my current prediction, and that's mostly born out of the fact that it feels like neblime hasn't really been playing to his normal level. I think even the last time he went Terran, right? We think back to the last tournament. Yeah, okay, some of his success came at the form of Wraiths, but I was a lot more confident in his level of power, his level of skill with even late game stuff, right? He took opponents to a little bit more to task. It's almost like he's regressed a little bit with his more macro-oriented, let me just, turtle up and wait until I win the game by default kind of way. And that can work against 3-Crow, clearly, but I don't think the same thing is going to be true against the higher levels of competition that he's got left to face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awkward. It's neblime definitely. I mean, I knew he was going to come out on top on this. It really would have required some serious blunders, but it felt like, particularly in the game on Sideshow, that he could have been so much more decisive about it. He had such a huge advantage, but his drops kept being so ineffectual, and I don't know if that was just him just not really putting real serious effort into it, just trying to meme his way through. But someone like Mystery Meat definitely would not crumple to that very easily. I mean, 3-Crow repelled pretty much all of it, came out on top, and even managed to put a serious dent into his map presence as a result, and kill his army straight up front when he was behind for so long. So, if that was in Mystery Meat's shoes, then yeah, that I can definitely see Mr. Meat turning it around in a case like that. It was just a lot of just wasted economy and budget and everything just into those drops that just didn't go anywhere. So it felt like that when neblime started going off the early wraiths, that he lost a lot of his presence as Terran. We're not really seeing the magical drops anymore that I know him most well for. He's not even really trying it out.
Yeah.
He's trying a slower, methodical, still effective, at least against 3-Crow build. But against Mystery Meat, I don't think that's enough. Like, he won off the back of wraiths and stuff like that in the previous tournament, and now he's not doing that anymore, so we're not really seeing that decisive harass into control anymore. So it's it feels weaker, most certainly.
And as a result of today's matches, the matches we casted today, we know the subsequent matchups. It looks like Mystery Me will likely move past neblime if we wanted to sort of project into the future. But even regardless of that set, we know the Shambler awaits the winner of Elimination 3 in the lower final. And honestly, if you showed me this bracket, right, you showed me the spot where we have, only one spot left to determine who's in the lower final. That's going to be the winner of Elimination 3. Who the hell is in the grand final? It's a newcomer. It's a debutant. It's Hamster. He's actually, if you look at it, he's the only newcomer in the tournament able to make it into the playoffs, if you think about it, right? Hamster is the guy who exits second place out of Group A. But, Dead Infested, a newcomer, he gets schooled. Moonhunter, a newcomer, he gets schooled. They both exit third place. Same for It Depends, another guy who is new to the project. So 1 out of the 4 newcomers makes it into playoffs, and that one happens to get all the way to the grand final. That's going to be really interesting. At this point, we've got Neblime, the Terran player, Mystery Meat, random, seems to favor Protoss, but can kind of play a little bit of everything, and the Shambler, a Zerg player. I think at this stage, we're looking at Hamster in that grand final. Unless Mystery Meat gets all the way there and then rolls a lot of Protoss, I kind of feel like Hamster's going to be pretty comfortable in any of these matchups. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's going to be an interesting set to compare just to see what ends up happening there.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to see Shambler against him with Shambler, maybe not playing from a hotel and having to deal with real life stuff. I think he'd do better, but Meat rolls Zerg against him, that would be pretty funny to see. And just in general, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really expect Hamster to beat Shambler and beat him so convincingly at that. But again, all these aforementioned factors definitely played some amount into it. So,
right, yeah.
Knowing that, I would favor it for it to be Mystery Meat that comes in, and that could be interesting to see how that turns out, especially coming out of group stages where he actually dropped rounds against Hamster. Really drop any rounds at this point, he's probably will bring his A game for this. So, I would expect to see some more decisive play out of them. I still feel like, in many ways, Hamster hasn't really been tested as much. I felt like that. Just because, particularly I expected Shambler to just destroy him. But evidently Shambler had a lot of weakness, especially in that first match, and some other stuff he didn't do as well. So, I think when Shambler was playing more as top, it would have been much more competitive. But, I don't know. Like, with Mystery Meat, I don't think, you can just go Calculus against Mystery Meat and his Protoss and say, oh, Calculus are overpowered. Like, Protoss have just many natural options they can use against them as early as tier 1. Right, like they can just build idols. So there would be some more flexibility he'd have to do, and then we get to see more or less what he can perform in. So I don't know, like that to me is kind of interesting because I feel like that in the way like Hamster hasn't really been tested that much in these last few matches that I expected him to be. Then we haven't really also seen really what his full skills are actually capable of. So he may be even higher level than I'm really expecting to see even coming into this yet. So that'll definitely be interesting to see how well he performs. There's definitely like an enigma, a mystery surrounding him. And it may take some meat to really get to center of that. Maybe Neblime will find some new things to do. Because, I mean, he won very convincingly in this. But I feel like, again, he goes up against Shambler or Mystery Meat. And he won't be able to be as passive about those. He won't be able to have so many failed drops against those. He's definitely going to have to tidy things up. And, he might do that. He might come back and practice.
Sure, yeah.
He's been in this spot so many times in his career playing this game that is, you have highs and lows. And, you kind of just think, okay, I won, but it could have been a bit more convincing. How can I be more decisive about that? So, I think it would be interesting to see a Meat versus Hamster rerun. But, depending on what happens with Shambler and Neblime, it definitely could be any of them.
Yeah, I do think that there's still a chance for Elimination 3 to deliver some good games, for the lower final to deliver some good games. I suspect we'll see some bangers, but I do think that if we were just thinking from a sense of not trying to be biased towards any one player, Hamster's already locked for the grand final. Who can give him the most convincing win? Who's been the most convincing against him so far? Because he's actually played against all 3 of the remaining players in the lower bracket. He just played against the Shambler. Before that, he played against Neblime. And in group stage, he played against Mystery Meat. It was Mystery Meat who got the better of him. If you want to take their group games and think of it as a best of 3, it was a 2-1 victory in favor of Meat. So if that's going to be the case, and you're looking for a competitive final, and you don't want it to be, okay, we have to count on these other players who have a shaky record at best against Hamster so far in this tournament, who's going to give him the best kind of match? I think it would be Mystery Meat. So if we were just sort of hoping and dreaming for the best grand final we could have to send us off, that would be the thing that we go for. And I absolutely think that's going to be an interesting option for sure.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting to see. And I think that's all of our games for today, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Which means I get to relax a little bit before I go to work in like 40 minutes, which is nice because I wasn't sure how close to the wire we would be making this. But yeah, with that being closed out, I have pinged our surviving players. We will update you guys on the match state of everything very soon. I'll have some conversations about what's going on and what's happening. It looks like Shambler's like preemptively playing the Elimination 3 players in case, depending on who wins because of his scheduling and stuff. So we'll see how that one goes. But in this current situation, we are going to see what happens next. We'll see if we can bring you those games sooner rather than later. We've got 1 day of casting left, boys. That's all that's left, the last 3 sets. So join us then for the finals whenever we can set them up, and obviously join our server if you're looking to stay tuned to the broadcast and figure out when that broadcast is going to be. But thanks for joining us, Mesk. Thank you for casting and waking up early on, and not as early as it turns out as Mystery Meat and Keen woke up, but that's all then and now. Do you have any final words for us before we close things out?
Smoke weed every day, and I'm having a nap.
Nap time.